No, we're live. Welcome, everybody. We got a cool show for you tonight. First things first, USARK fighting for your right, or everybody's right, to own the reptiles and amphibians that we love. They do a good job mitigating poor legislation that's proposed pretty much constantly. They're always combating it. We got a great team of people there. Phil, everybody else. You got Dan, Vanessa, a bunch of other volunteers, a lot of really good lawyers. Keep donating. It's, definitely very good to do. And then we got the Southeast Reptile Expo coming up this weekend, August 1st and 2nd. Dave and I will be there. Our guest Nick won't be because he's out in Washington, but you'll get to hear him talk tonight. So let's listen to Nick, and then come to the Southeast Expo in Atlanta if you're able to. And then we got the Reptile Super Show. The next one is Anaheim. I'm not sure if I can make it. I don't know when Anaheim is, but Rami puts out a hell of a show. Rami's a great guy. I want to watch at the USARK auction that he donated, so that's some information that you don't need. And then the Pomona Super Show will be early January. We'll be there. Hey, Nick. Hey, Dave. How's it going?
Hey.
Good.
Appreciate you, Nick.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest, it's always a treat to have you guys together in the same podcast. I love the conversations. I'm going to try to get a few more words in this time for the record.
There you go.
But very excited about this. But so Nick, I'm going to ask you that real basic question, some of that early, everybody should know kind of shit. What was the very first thing you bred when you decided to work in the hobby? Like, first species?
Carpet pythons.
Okay.
Was it like jungle carpet or coastal carpet? What was the first pairing ever?
I think the first thing I hatched was Diamond Coastal Intergrade, so the irony that Mr. Fanatical Purist made hybrids for his first clutch. But the first year I tried to breed any pythons, I produced 4 different clutches, so my first time up, all 4 pairs that I tried, so I had Diamond Coastal Intergrades, jungle carpets, 2 clutches of jungle carpets, and a clutch of coastal carpets. I think the Diamond Coastal Intergrades hatched like a week before the others. I think that was technically the first. But my first year, I hatched 63 baby pythons, not knowing what I was doing. It's kind of a lot all at once.
Yeah, I mean, you had to have some idea of what you're doing to hatch out 63 pythons.
Well, 4 good-sized clutches, but it was mainly like I never had to take hatchlings from hatching to getting them established and feeding, and then
right.
So, but it went all right.
So, Dave, he might be getting some dwarf Burmese pythons. What do you think about dwarf Burmese pythons? Is that a real thing?
Are you when you say getting some, do you mean are you getting some or are you going to hatch some?
I'm thinking about getting some.
Oh, so if you're hatching some, we need to talk. But
no, I got to get a little more information, but I've kind of always wanted to try something like that. And
I'd just say I don't know who you'd be getting them from. Be careful. The hobby predictably does dumb shit. Like whenever there's the opportunity to fuck up a good thing, they do. And so there's no such thing as a dwarf Burmese python.
That's why I wanted to know. Is dwarf Burmese python, is it a real thing?
Fuck no, it's not a real thing.
Dwarf Burmese python also, is that politically correct?
It's not a dwarf Burmese python because it's not a Burmese python. It's another python that is related to Burmese pythons, Indian pythons, that's its own thing. The reason why they slapped the dwarf Burmese python on it is because then it made it more socially acceptable to hybridize them into your Burmese pythons for the sake of morphs. To do the same dumb thing the retic people did. So you have this unique insular island population of dwarf scaled down molurus in the molurus complex, but they just wanted to use it for hybrids. So it had to be, calling it a dwarf Burmese python seemed like, that eased that a bit. It's not a Burmese python. It is its own thing. All those things are just hybrids.
Okay.
So the Progshy itself probably is almost certainly a full species. The designation as a subspecies is mostly horseshit. What it is when they described it, the people that described it wanted to slap a name on something. And it was a slam dunk. But since they didn't want to spring for DNA sequencing and everything, they did a quick down and dirty paper, slapped it as a subspecies, because that is less controversial if you don't do a thorough paper and use DNA. But if anybody later uses DNA and goes back, they will have to use the name Progshy. So they basically just wanted to steal the naming rights for it, but didn't want to spend the money to do a full, proper paper. That's why it's a subspecies, because they didn't want to spend the money. That's literally it. It's a different species of snake. So they're little tiny snakes. They live
Where's their range?
They live in one, well, that's a controversial thing, but they live in one island and they coexist with reticulated pythons, which is why they're small. Because you can't have two giant apex predator pythons that are getting 15 to 18 feet long. They would overlap in prey preference so much. So retics are big and semi-arboreal and huge and eat the big stuff, and the Burmese pythons, not really, the Mollerus pythons on that island, downsize. It's a concept called biological niche partitioning. They have to exclude each other in some way, shape, or form to allow them to coexist without overtly competing. So, in this case, size. The Mollerus gets small, the retic, because the big giant python job was already filled by the retics, Mollerus can't compete with the retic that's already there, downsizes, eats smaller prey. The lower in the trophic scale you get, the more prey there is. So the smaller the prey is, the more numerous the prey is. By the time you get to the point where you're eating, tree kangaroos and primates and big stuff, there's less big food, then there's a lot more small food. So while an adult progshy would have to compete with like a juvenile reticulated python, at that size, there's enough food for them both to exist. But if both got to full size, there wouldn't be. So that's why one small and retics are big.
Okay.
In that population.
What do you think they should be called then? Like dwarf sperm, you're referring to them, is that what you're referring to as ballers?
Mollerus is the Mollerus complex, which is your Indian pythons, your Sri Lankan pythons, which are a subspecies of Mollerus, but then they decided that's not a subspecies, that's just Mollerus, but they're totally not just Mollerus. I have some. They're obviously not. Where you draw the lines between species, subspecies are all the same thing. It's entirely made up. It is not that scientific. It is just up to the opinion of the person writing the paper. And the opinions are worth about exactly as much as you think. The Sri Lankan pythons are distinctly different from the rest of the Mollerus on the mainland. Where you draw that line is made up. These dwarf pythons, these dwarf Mollerus, are definitely a different... Even anatomically, if you look at their heads are shaped different. They're all assholes. They're just nasty, bitey little things. Their heads are shaped different. Their eyes are rotated further on the top of their head like an anaconda. Like their skull is shaped differently.
That's what I was about to ask, if their head structure was a lot
different. It is obviously different.
Gotcha.
They are not a Burmese python. They're just not. And it's like this naming convention. It's just like the retics. We want to call these little dwarf ones dwarf retics. Why? Because we want to hybridize them with morph retics that are bigger. So it's not a retic. It's another snake that's related to retics. It's in that reticulatus complex, but so are Temur pythons for that matter. It's part of that clade, but it's its own distinct entity. Calling it a dwarf retic and calling it a dwarf berm is just a convenience because you want to make a bunch of mutt snakes with it, and that's what they're doing. Which is why if you ask anybody that actually has and hatches those dwarf berms, they always sell out of males first. The males sell like crack. Why? Because you got to breed those little tiny males of your big morph Burmese python stuff and make a bunch of hybrids that you don't tell people. It's the same insanity you see with the retics.
Gotcha. Now that these dwarf berms, how big do they get? Like, what's their max size if you slam them with food? Like,
there's no such as big as you want it to be. There's no such thing as adult max size in anything.
I know.
Look at how big.
Look at growing.
How big. What's the biggest hognose snake you've ever seen?
Almost 4 foot. So
yeah, and what's the biggest wild hognose snake anyone's ever seen?
About 3 foot.
And the 4 foot snake was like 300 times the mass of the foot. It's like because the mass scales disproportionately to the length. So a 4 foot snake weighs 3 times what the 3 foot snake is.
Questions like how big? Like obviously we don't know probably exactly.
And the wild 3 foot hognose is probably 87 years old or something.
It's old. It's maybe not that old. Maybe not that. Maybe like
ancient.
20.
Yeah, an ancient snake.
That's what I tell people too. I was like, because when do you see like a 300-gram hognose in the wild or 400-gram hognose in the wild, like female, which is rare. Like if you talk to these people, like Jeff LeClaire, like I ask him, like he's found over 600 hognose in his career of studying hognose in these northern regions, and I'm like, what's the biggest female he ever found? And I'm actually surprised. Sometimes these guys are like, oh, we found a 400-gram female. And they were like, yeah, like 33, 34 inches long. I can't remember. I
yes, but is that all?
They're old as hell. They got to be old. They got to be like 20, 25 years old.
And that's in the northern portion of the range?
Yeah, but I've heard of ones equally as big in Texas. Like, there doesn't really seem to be a range. Like, I've heard of people finding 400-gram ones in Texas. I don't really think there's a huge difference between the northern and southern locale size you know,
I will all
potential.
but guarantee you that the ones in the north live longer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the temperature is definitely. So
It's like it tends to sort of cryopreserve things, and your metabolic rate is so low that you just stretches things out, and you live a long time. And if you live long enough, and you live in a good area where there's actual ample prey, and you just last long enough, and you don't get eaten by a bird or an owl one night, and you make it to a ripe old age, they'll eventually get to unusually large sizes if they're lucky, and it's just a function of not getting eaten or run over for long enough and living a long life. So you occasionally find these freaky giant animals, but they're just super old and very lucky. I bet the ones further south probably their metabolic rate's going to be a lot faster. They're going to probably grow faster, and they're going to breed younger, and they're going to be done. It's just the whole cycle's going to be over, and they'll be checking out sooner. But yeah, there is no point. You want to make you could get a. It's more informative. Like, what's the minimum breed adult size? That's more informative because maximum adult size doesn't really exist.
Yes,
that's a myth.
Well, it's a client, it's a range. Like, you ask me the maximum size, I'll give you a similar answer to what you said. Probably not as scientific, but I'll give you like a kind of a broad range of like what's normal and then what's an outlier. So, how big does a dwarf sperm female like get in captivity, roughly? Like, what's a good range you've seen?
Look at they'll breed at like 5 feet long. They'll breed in a CB70 tub. They're little.
Gotcha.
They're sexually mature at a very small size. But anything after that's an adult. Anything after that is optional. And
so like you don't usually see them like if they're over like 7 foot. It's a really like you fed the hell out of it. But they do have the capacity to probably get them.
But people in the hobby are incentivized to overfeed things because I have these dwarf berms, not really berms, and that 4.5 foot female will lay 7 eggs. But that 8 foot female that's bigger than it ever should even be allowed to get will lay 15 eggs. And because they're expensive, we want the 15 eggs. So we're incentivized, consciously or otherwise, to overfeed these things, especially the females, to unnatural sizes to get unnatural clutch sizes and make money. And so, which then of course comes to the flip side, you kill your snakes a lot younger. They do not live as long. The snake that was supposed to be 5 feet that you made 8 feet and was supposed to lay 7 eggs and now it lays 15 eggs. It was also supposed to live for 40 years and now it's going to live 15 years. That's the part nobody wants to talk about. You burn the candle at both ends, metabolically speaking, and it burns out twice as fast. And that is an inescapable truth. If you feed the shit out of your snakes and grow them to great big sizes, you might even get big ass clutches of eggs. But that snake is not going to live as long as if you took it more conservatively. If you breed the hell out of your snakes, they don't live as long. You breed a female hognose. There's a finite number of eggs that snake's going to lay, and even with hognose, something that reproduces more, frankly, than a lot of this other stuff. Look at what happens. Look what they go through when they lay that clutch of eggs. Look what they look like. The loss of condition. It takes a lot out of them. You only get to do that so many times. I mean, it's not an unlimited, just lay forever. Well, unless you're an African house snake or something. I mean, generally speaking, with snakes, it's not.
I don't think those live very long, though. The African house snakes. I can't imagine they live very long.
No, they lay 5 clutches of eggs a year. They're just always. They're like a gecko. It's just go, and then you die.
My friend breeds the house snakes, and he is like, it is funny. We always joke about it every time I see him in California, because he was like sold to him as like, oh, this is the next corn snake, and he thought they were interesting. And he goes, oh, they're really good feeders. He goes, man, these things like kind of suck to feed sometimes. The babies are all over the place. He goes, they're wild. Like, sounds like a Honduran milk snake. He goes, they're really like, darty and stuff.
I like them quite a bit. They have vertically slit pupils and like an arrowhead. They kind of look like a little tiny python.
They do look, they are cool looking.
But unfortunately, the hobby just got took over with house snake morphs. So now all anybody gives a crap about is morphs, and hybrids to make morphs by hybridizing different species of house snakes. I don't give a crap about any of that. Like, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of another. Like, how long could that market stay healthy? Like,
I don't know.
It's like it's entirely it's based on the triviality of morph breeding, and they mature in a year and lay 5 clutches of eggs a year off a single mating and stored sperm. What could I'm sure that's gonna be really stable for the long haul. It's the absolute. Oh, and you can breed them in a V18 tub because they're little. It's like they're just gonna. It's insane. Like, I might be getting. I know a customer of mine. He bred the black house snakes, no morphs. They're just like all black. And like, I want some of those because they're not morphs and there are no morphs. And I don't want more. I just think they're neat. I don't want. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff because then it just becomes the never-ending morph rat race and all that. I mean, man, wouldn't it be nice to have some projects that were just to enjoy for yourself? Like, I just like, these are cool snakes. I just want to have these for me. And not be... I think I know all of us have been guilty of this. Me maybe less so than you guys, but me definitely also as well. But it is so easy to fall into this rabbit hole of chasing the morph thing. And it becomes all consuming, and now you look up and what the hell? And all of a sudden you have so much. It's just, man. I'm like,
so you're basically saying no house snakes in that house.
I don't want any house snake morphs. I like house snakes. I do not want to get involved in the morph rat race in another species. I have a small little collection of colubrids that one of these days I'll start putting together. I've had them for years. I've never even paired them. Okatee corns. I've got a bunch of that cool stuff.
That's nice.
Some Theri and Mexican kings, but I don't have a single morph of anything. No morphs at all. I'm out of my way. I don't want hats. I don't want any surprise morphs and any clutch. I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that. I just want to look at these things for what they are.
You appreciate locales big time. I know that, especially when you ask about that hog nose.
Look at a California king snake and tell me a black and white California king snake that does not need morphs. How is a morph going to make that better? It's already insane. It's amazing. Well, it doesn't need a morph to be better. It's anything you do to a black and white cow king takes away from the fact that it's a black and white cow king. It was already perfection. I have enough morphs and other things to dink around with if I want to scratch that itch. I just want to. I'm just not. It becomes too. I don't want to chase that stuff. It's exhausting.
So I know Nick probably hasn't, but Jeff, have you actually looked into how many different Cali King mutations there are? Because
I don't know about Cali King mutations.
If you look it up, there's 20 plus.
There's locales of those, but I mean I like what Nick says because imagine if a Cal King, imagine if a Cal King was normally kind of just yellow brown with some orangish banding, and then it threw a morph that was black and white like a wild type Cal King. You're like, holy shit, that's the coolest fucking Cal King on the face of the planet. It's kind of like my super Arctic hog nose, because it's black and white. When I first released the pictures of those, a lot of people actually said kind of what Nick said. They're like, the problem with that morph is. They're like, that's the coolest it will ever be. Anything you mix with it is going to... And I kind of partially agree. I could see that perspective, but there's other things you can do with it. But yeah, a nice, clean, black and white, sharp, vivid snake with pink tones looks good.
But look at the hobby. We've gotten to a point where that's not cool enough anymore. I can't... It's that's old news. It's black... It's 50-50 black and white. You could not possibly have more contrast. It's the most contrasting thing that is mathematically possible. It is impossible to have more contrast than a 50-50 black and white cow king.
Yin and yang.
But for some people, it's boring. I think
people get used to stuff looking at it. And but the thing is, you said about the rat race of morphs. I'll tell you what. I love it though. That's the thing. For me, it is. I do like it. So that's my part of my life. I really like genetics, and I love the rat race. Throw me in the wheel, and I'll go.
I'm I don't hate morphs. I hate what morphs have done to the hobby, and that they've taken over so completely that nobody gives a crap about anything but that. I think that the vast majority of people have lost their initial appreciation and fascination with how beautiful some of these things are. Morphs are not an improvement. They are just different. They're not better than the original. They're just different than the original. And if you like that, that's cool. But if you can't even appreciate what something was supposed to look like because it's not a morph enough, then I think you've kind of lost it a little bit. I don't have a problem with California king snake morphs, but to me, it's never going to be. No corn snake morph is better than an Okatee corn snake to me. I've yet to see a corn snake morph that I would trade for a nice Okatee corn snake. I've not seen a king snake morph that's better looking than a 50-50 black and white cow king. It's different, but I think we should, I don't know, I think it'd be better, the hobby would be better if we appreciated just how naturally beautiful these things are anyway, and it still appreciated that. And you can also appreciate these other alternate versions, but I think if you completely lose sight of what probably got you into these things in the first place, if you're an old timer like me, it wasn't morphs. It was I love my Timor pythons. I don't know why they pee all the time, but they don't need to be a morph to be cool. They're cool because they're Timor pythons. They do not need morphs.
You ever call them Timors?
Timor pythons.
Okay.
I think you said P-mores.
Yeah, you ever call them
No.
Timors?
No, they should. They should. It's already a weird misnomer because guess what doesn't live on the island of Timor? Timor python.
Python. Where are they
No.
from then?
Not roti and smell. They're not actually on Timor. The only python on Timor is a Macklot's python.
Really? Okay.
So yeah, they're like in the islands, right in that group, but not actually on Timor. So it's a misnomer. It's kind of like Antaresia perthensis, the Perth pygmy python. Nowhere near Perth. People were like sending specimens back from Indonesia and Australia in the 19th century, and they were getting described by desk jockeys at the British Museum. And a lot of times, like, they'd get the locality information wrong, and then the name just sticks. So you're stuck with Perthensis from a species that's nowhere near Perth. And, well, even in, like, dinosaur taxonomy, two major clades are theropods and sauropods. Theropod means beast foot, and sauropod means lizard foot. They got them exactly backwards. Like, they're backwards. And for 150 years, we are now stuck with the exact opposite of what it was supposed to be because somebody made what amounts to a clerical error, and it's never going to get changed. So, yeah. Sauropods have a foot like an elephant, like a beast, and theropods have foot like a lizard or a bird, but it's the opposite. They've got it completely ass backwards, but it's just too difficult. It's too entrenched to change. That's why we're going to be having Timor pythons forever that never lived on Timor.
So, I do understand your arguments about keeping things original, and I will say there's more people in the hobby doing that now than I think I've seen in a very long time. So I think there is always going to be that section, and there's, I think that's all it can be, though, because I'll be honest,
Section.
I really loved artwork in high school, and I loved pop art. I liked all the Andy Warhol stuff, bright colors. I really enjoy the colors and mutations. Like, I do fawn over them a little bit.
But the enjoyment over that is temporary and fleeting. It's only cool for a minute, and then something else comes out that's cooler, and then no one gives a crap about the thing that was previously the coolest thing. Now we're all onto this thing. And now we're all getting chased after this. Oh, that's old news. Who gives a crap about that? It's nuts. Like, I have a friend who's a recovering ball python breeder who still breeds some stuff, and he's
not like that's an addiction or something, or
he's slowly phasing things out for other things, but it's like he produced like a couple clutches of pied combo ball pythons that are the most insane things I have ever seen. Like, they are literally fluorescent orange and fluorescent yellow with white and jet, just like the most crazy. Like, if you'd have shown me a picture of that 10 years ago, I thought it was Photoshop. Like, that can't possibly be a living thing. Cannot possibly be those colors. Whole clutches of these things. Just ludicrous. Can't give them away for $200 because nobody cares, because that's old news. And if that's because now, it's just, I don't know, there's the monkey see, monkey do thing. We're all going to chase after this other thing that we were told we should chase after now, even though it's obviously less attractive than this other thing, but that's old, so we shouldn't care about that. It's just, I don't know, like, it's,
I think that stuff is still worth making, and honestly, I think that really benefits the pet market because people get very odd, unique-looking animals they used to not be able to afford.
It illustrates that it is not really about what is objectively cool, it's about what is objectively trendy and what we're being told to, and that is like, is that what we want to just constantly chase after, what other people are telling us we should be chasing after, or should we be doing what we think is, I mean, other people with their time and their collection and their money can breed whatever and will breed whatever they want, as they should. I'm just saying, like, if you can't appreciate things for these species for what they're supposed to look like, then, I mean, you don't have to pursue it, but you should at least, I would hope, have some appreciation for what these things are supposed to look like. It's like, it doesn't have to be what your focus is and what you're doing even, but like, if you can't be bothered to even look at something every warm night all summer, I grab my kids and we go herping down the road about 10 miles away. There's a spot and go, and I catch like tons of local gopher snakes and stuff, and they all kind of look, I have found an Axanthic one though, but it's just, these are not exciting, but it's still cool. Every time I find a rubber boa, it's still cool. It's like, I'm not going to keep it. I don't care about that. It's still, I don't want to lose that fascination with that stuff. For the sake of this other stuff. Yes.
Dave likes it.
You can.
I like
Jeff
it.
likes
Let's-
it, and Jeff was
exactly.
I
just
like wild hog
Colorado.
nose snakes a lot. I
Yes.
like wild hog nose. Like they're some of my favorites.
Yes.
And I'm not
Cover
just
little
saying that.
pieces of
You're
wood.
not. Yeah, I mean
Right.
they're that's what the first thing I ever seen that made me really like a hog nose was of course there weren't many morphs then and they weren't readily available and they were very expensive. But the first hog nose I ever seen was a wild caught female. And I think it's pretty easy to appreciate though a wild caught Western hog nose because they're so hard to find. You never like I've talked to like Richard Evans and he's like, oh yeah, they used to be real abundant in Lubbock, Texas. And and he's like 70 years old almost now at this point. And I asked him like, how many have you found in your lifetime? I thought he was going to tell me like some insane number because I used to find him all the time. He's like 80, maybe 90. I'm like, that's it in your whole lifetime, and like and he's looked for him a lot. So I was like, but anyway. Yeah, I think certain morphs still sell like pretty well, but you're right. Sometimes it's the newer people. I definitely think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying because once you look at
how about
it,
this?
combination.
Let me just say one thing because I think he is very right about one thing, and this is for you, Jeff.
Yes.
Trendsetters are the guys that are usually dictating the market. You're a trendsetter in your market.
It took me a while to get to the chat. I wanted to see the chat. That's what I was doing on my phone. I was trying to get it. I had to open up the app. That's where I'm at. Because Dave started the show. Normally I can read it, but I can't.
You just ignored everything I just said, didn't you?
No, I didn't. You said I'm a trendsetter, but here's the thing. I'm a different kind of trendsetter in some regards. Like, I only here's the thing. There's not a ton of morphs in a hog nose, and I'm doing all these different projects, and I'll tell you if one is like, I'll tell you how good it is. Like, if you want to talk about like new hog nose mutations, the newest ones are Skullface, Cinnamon, and Antarctic. The biggest one of all of them is Antarctic. Now, I'm going more heavy into that one because I truly believe it is the biggest one. Because for one, it has insane, phenotypic impact on the single copy allele form in complete dominant, and then the homozygous is like insane too. And they're really on par with, they're not on par. They're like super Arctic and Arctic, but even better. So, I kind of look at these mutations, like I try to look at them objectively and non-biasedly, and I think for me it's pretty simple. It's kind of like looking at something as like, if you're going to look at it as an investment or a species you like, you got to weigh out, hey, can I manage this? Can I take care of this? Is this going to have a good return? There's a bunch of different ways you can look at things. And so I look at mutations like this, and the Antarctic is going to be the next big thing for the next 5 or 10 years. It's so cool looking. Even the regular super Antarctics, they're actually like jet shiny black, like obsidian black. It's some of the most blackest black I've ever seen on a hognose. Even on the started ones, like it doesn't fade, and then just a little micro gray flecks. So, I mean, it's kind of hard not to I'm not even setting a trend. I'm just kind of letting the picture speak for itself. I'm like, check out how cool these are. I believe this is the next big thing. Is Cinnamon cool? Sure. But I'd say on like an investment scale, Antarctic is insanely superior and more dominating. And then Skullface has Nero issues. And so, and it's cool. If they have Nero issues, it'd have a way bigger spot. But, the ball pythons, though, it's interesting. There's more trends and fads and things come in and out. Hognose are much more lengthy. You can have a new mutation in hognose, and it'll stay relevant for 10 years. Sable's still relevant. Sable's been out for 11, 12 years. Still extremely relevant. Yes.
So, Nick, you might not know this, but Jeff also likes the stock market.
Yeah, I trade stocks, too.
Yeah. At all. But, no, I
can see that.
Like joke, man. If you're playing the morph game, it's kind of like selling stocks. You're kind of investing in something you think is going to keep on going up, and everything else. And I say like localities, that's day trading, man. It's consistent. You might make a couple more pennies next season.
Day trading, it's not a good example. It's more of like the locale stuff would be, if you're going to compare it to stocks, would be like big blue chips with no growth but great dividends. They're not going to really move much, but you're going to get a consistent dividend. But that's if you're looking at an investment. I don't really the locale stuff. I mean, that's the thing. Like hognose snakes, they're relatively, the care is pretty simple and they have pretty good production. So even when you're producing normal hognose, you're making your money back on them. So of course it's not always about that. The locale stuff, like I have some locale hognose. Unfortunately, my one died, which really stuck me good because I'm like, god dang. Because some of these locales, I don't want to work with just like a normal locale. I want to get something that's like a little unusual. Like I have a South Dakota female. I'm going to breed her next year. but I don't have a male for her, so I'm doing a Montana locale male to the South Dakota locale.
If the things I was into were native to the United States, I would just go get my own. I think that would be so much cooler to not only have locality hognose, but that you caught them yourself and then establish your own line that you collected yourself. It'd take
a long time.
It might be one of those things like you find a female and then it takes you like 7 years before you find a male in the same place. It's always like it might take a long time, but
yes, yeah.
I just think that would be the most. I would do that in a heartbeat if it was possible.
It's tough because for one, there's a lot of states you can't take the ones from. I do have one of I can't say too much. So anyway, we're gonna move past that and some conversation. But yeah, Montana stuff is like you can collect. Wyoming you can collect. There's already a lot of stuff originally from Texas, so like, and a lot of our stuff like is from West Texas, the Lubbock area. Obviously you got all mixed up, but I don't know, they're not too locale mudded. I mean, I guess they are because like Sable is like Montana, and then they've been mixed with a lot of Southwest locale, like Lubbock, Texas area stuff. But I have some that are pretty heavy Montana locale, and then I have some that are actually pure Montana locale, and I have pure South Dakota locale. But yeah, it would be nice to get more.
Just looking at like the recent sort of climatological history in North America, they're probably not as diverged. Those northern ones, those southern ones, because the northern ones are living in a place where they couldn't have even been 10,000 years ago because it was 2 miles under ice. So would have been like they've only recently realistically colonized that far north. So they're probably not as diverged from the southern ones as you might think. I mean, a little bit probably, but they're not.
Yeah,
probably not that diverged.
Yeah, anatomically they're not really different. There isn't really any characteristic. Like people have asked me about that. I've seen people like, why aren't people talking about like, because one guy's comparing them to like boas, but like these boa locales are like really ancient and basal. I think. Yeah. I think like the hognose like locality, like you're saying, it was like smaller and then it expanded when it could. And if I look like at the rostrum of like my South Dakota one and the rostrum of like a Texas one, I'm not seeing like any noticeable difference or any consistent variable that's like different from the two. The big thing is the northern locales definitely have some they definitely have evolved to to metabolize at these cooler temps. Their eggs hatch out faster. If I get a pure like Minnesota or Montana hognose eggs and I incubate them against my mixed locale ones at the same exact temperature, they hatch 5 to 7 to 8 days faster than the Mutt South locale ones or ones that are mostly southern locale ones.
But it makes perfect sense if you think about it. If you are a southerly ranging animal, the window of time in the calendar year where you could successfully have eggs is wide. Whereas in the north, your window of time where you could successfully those eggs can incubate where the temperatures are adequate is much shorter. What's probably happening is that they're just retaining the eggs internally longer, and so they're laying an egg that has a more developed embryo. So the time it spends, because mom can move around and get better temperatures. Once the eggs are laid, she can't. She's probably just laying the eggs later and allowing less of it to be outside of her body and more of it inside of her body to shorten that window of time because of the climate.
Possible, you see but even this spring they have a shorter time. I don't believe that. I think their metabolic rate is about the same, but I think it's actually sped up in the northern locales in captivity because I'm keeping them at these warmer temperatures.
You're absolutely speeding it up if you have northern animals and you're keeping in the warmer temperatures, then the wheels are turning faster, for sure.
But even in like when they catch them like in the wild, like Jeff LeClaire, like they'll find them out active in April, and that seems like when they're breeding. And then they're laying like end of June, early July, sometimes a little earlier if it's a warmer climate year. But yeah, it's funny. The northern locales are also, of course, darker. The funny thing is like you don't ever see red phase in the northern locales. The northern locales are pretty like they favor like darker, more mahogany colors, and they're more like grays and greens. Like if you look at the Wyoming ones, you'll see like nice green phase and grayish colored ones. They're dark. And then when you start getting to the more yellows, reds, and more interesting tones, those are more like start getting into Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. Sometimes you see yellowish ones. Western Texas, and then especially areas in Oklahoma, especially like the upper panhandle area of Texas and southwestern Oklahoma where the soil's more red. You get the more reddish hognose. Lubbock area, you get some yellows, red. You get some of those just kind of like plain brown ones. And then New Mexico, they have a unique look there too. And even their iris seems to be a different color in New Mexico opposed to, let's say, Texas or a northern locale one. They have more of a reddish, orangish iris.
Those sort of surface level differences in color for population mean almost nothing genetically. Like, it takes so little for that to change that outside paint job a little bit. A little lighter, a little darker, a little redder, a little grayer. It's very, very little. And genomically, it takes very, very little. So that kind of stuff can happen very quickly, very easily to adapt to local conditions. Oh, your soil is redder. Well, that's it's gonna. And there's tons of examples in evolutionary biology of that with other species where you'll have like the same species and in two different habitats right next to each other, and there'll be different colors in different habitats, even though they're like right next to each other.
Probably takes thousands of years still, though.
Yeah, or I mean, not
Maybe
necessarily.
Hundreds. I don't know, man. When I bred my northern locale once to my best red phase, holy shit, did it fucking knock the red out of them. It was hard. I mean, it took a few generations, but yeah, I don't know. I could see it be hundreds of years.
It could be decades. There's a concept in evolutionary science called punctuated equilibrium, which was first postulated in I think, the 70s by a biologist named Stephen Gould. And it's basically talking about, like, you can have long periods of relatively few changes, but very short bursts of rapid change because of stimulus. Like, oh, well, now we're able to, now we can move here, and there's this new habitat opens up, and you have a rapid rate of diversification and change because it's wide open. You're exploiting a new niche. Now the climate has warmed enough and you can move north. Oh, now there's an area of red sandy habitat. Red probably comes on pretty quick. Because think about how many eggs a hognose lays. All right, if you had like a hognose, one breeding pair of hognose migrate into a new area. How many, under favorable conditions, how many descendants, how many hognose would you have in 1 century, in 100 years? If no hognose are there, so there's no competition, wide open playing field as you're moving north because glaciers have advanced or retreated and whatnot. You could see how that one pair, it's like, well, geez, that first year she lays 10 eggs. And then the second year she lays 10 eggs. The third year she lays 10 eggs. But then in the fourth year, the 5 females from clutch 1 each laid 10 eggs. You see this exponential population explosion. And every single one of those offspring represents an opportunity for a random mutation to occur.
Yeah, or polyvariant. Yeah.
This stuff can happen pretty quickly because these aren't representative like big. These are small changes. I mean, and some of these things aren't even, you don't even need new genes. They're just like, changes in how genes are expressed. It can be very small things that can lead to, in some cases, very big. Look at like humans and chimpanzees. Most of the difference between us and a chimp are not different genes. It's differences in how the same genes are expressed. Things are expressed differently in us than they are in them, but it's not necessarily massive genome-wide differences. It's that a lot of that difference in phenotype is how genes are expressed. And that's the thing with a lot of things. It's not just what genes you have, it's how are those genes expressed. And those differences can make a big difference.
So, do you think that mutations that occur in the wild are typically more random, or do you think some of these mutations are just evolution in a way? Like, in one example would be the sable hognose. What state was that? The Dakotas?
Montana,
I'm sorry.
Northern locale, so yeah.
Colder climate, darker pigment, which, makes sense. Could thrive if they survive.
It's both. Evolution is a completely random thing. There's a transcription error, a typo in your genome, and now an A becomes a C becomes a T. It's a random fuck up during that process, and it usually does nothing. It's more likely to kill you than to help you, and every once in a blue moon, it might be beneficial. But given a long enough span of time and enough chances of this happening, eventually things change and will make you more closely tailored to your niche. But most of the time it doesn't. It's either neutral. People tend to think of mutations as being helpful or detrimental, but there's this whole other huge category of neutral mutations. Mutations that don't convey any real benefit, but also don't really hurt you either. And those can kind of hang around in a local population at a fairly high frequency, minding their own business. So something like a sable might not be helpful, but it might not be detrimental enough to get you eaten. So it might just be a neutral mutation that's just hanging around. And I give you a bunch of examples in pythons just because that's my own, my own wheelhouse. If you look at like southern scrub pythons in southern New Guinea, a lot of them are patternless. It's a recessive patternless mutation. Not a lot, but there's a fair few. They come in fairly regularly, patternless ones. If you go to the Moluccas, Classilepus, the Moluccan python, a lot of them are Axanthic. Which, the Axanthic, not really Axanthic, the thing we call Axanthic that isn't really Axanthic.
Not that
But
one again. Not that
there
one
are-
again. Well, you're
it's
talking about
not.
a phenotypic, like looking at Axanthic animal from the wild, but the whole recessive Axanthic.
No, they are.
you think all
These
Axanthics are
Axanthics-
dominant.
They are. 100%. I will die on this mountain, and you cannot prove me wrong.
Well, I'm 110% certain.
I'm 150% certain. Like,
10 million,
like,
infinity percent.
you're bad at math, and I'm right. So,
All right.
it's like, but those are, I mean, the most common Tanabar python in Tanabar are Axanthic patternless. It's a double recessive. Not really recessive. It's a double. The thing we keep calling recessive, but it's just easier to say it than to try to every time I use.
Well, how can one...
Every time I talk about Axanthic, I keep constantly having to say it's not Axanthic, it's not recessive. It's exhausting.
How could every Axanthic type of mutation just always be incomplete dominant? It's impossible for it to be recessive. Right there, you know you have to be wrong because science is never 100% certain. You can't say genetically that every time there's an Axanthic mutation, it can only be incomplete dominant. It's impossible to be recessive.
I will cede that point, and then I'll make another.
Gotcha.
Show me one that. Show me. You just create a hypothetical. It's mental masturbation. You can't show me a single example of what you're talking about. Every example is what I'm saying, and no examples buck the trend. Is it theoretically possible that one could? Yes, but every single one of them, none of them ever do, though. It's like,
and I'm not saying it got you as I got you. I mean, you're agreeing with me because you know. But the thing is,
it's theoretically possible, but it's like but they never are. Like they're never
Axanthic Western hog. I have red phase head Axanthics. I can easily make very high red head Axanthic hog nose, and they're pretty red.
What does a snow hog nose look like?
I mean,
can you see the pattern? Can you see the pattern on it?
Yes.
Then it's not a fucking Axanthic. That's just that simple.
Wait a minute, you're going by the literal definition. Here's the thing.
Yes, I'm going by the literal definition. Axanthic means no yellow. It says red doesn't really exist. No yellow or red, none. And if you have no black, and they definitely have no, if you have no melanin and you have no yellow/red, that means you have no pigment at all. You would be a perfectly white patternless snake. If you have
make it
a zero pattern,
dominant,
it means there's some
inheritance. And also, Axanthic,
it's
yellow
two
red
things we're talking about.
Reptiles are made from two things. You know this one? It's pterines and then carotenoids. So
Yes,
a lot of it is dietary. Some of it's dietary based.
But you're hatching animals that have never had anything in their diet because they've never eaten. Also,
well, they get it from their mom, though. They have pterines and carotenoids.
The way these genes work is you're just getting rid of those structures that hold those pigment precursors, and it's the same structure that holds both. So you can't get rid of one without getting rid of the other. So functionally, you could dice this up scientifically and make a word salad. Yeah, I suppose, but you can't delete one without deleting the other. They are functionally the same thing.
Yeah, well,
in snakes, this is the way it works.
The red pigments are actually part of yellow pigments. Yeah, they're the same thing. It's like there's the carotenoids, and then there's what are the other ones? They're for red pigments.
It's easier just to look at it like
carotenoid.
It's like
it's
easier to. It's hard to pronounce these things. I'm not even going to try.
Astaxanthin.
You're braver than me. I'm even going to try to pronounce it.
It's astaxanthin, and it's like basically that's what like flamingos. That's how they're able to red pigments. Astaxanthin, that's in shrimp and like krill and stuff like that. But here's the thing.
It's easier to look at the red and yellow as like a spectrum of one thing.
We're talking about the actual definition. We're talking about the definition of axanthic and anerythristic. We're not talking about the mode of inheritance.
You're talking two different problems with that.
Because you're saying since there's yellows and reds there, that it's not actually a true axanthic /anerythristic.
It is. Axanthic means no yellow. It doesn't mean some yellow.
But then
it means none.
Literally axanthic then ever.
That's what I'm saying. There are no examples of actual axanthics.
The mode of inheritance is not what actually makes it.
There are two things wrong with this. Okay. That is one of them, which you just ceded my point. There are no known true axanthics. Like if you were amelanistic, that means no melanin.
That means no
Your
melanin.
albinos don't have any trace melanin, do they? Your axanthic can't have any leftover trace yellow / red. So they are not by definition. They are by definition hypoxanthic because there's a little bit left, which is why snows are never white. They always have a little bit left. And it is always incomplete dominant. These are two different sides of the same thing.
Sometimes they're recessive, though, like my axanthic hog, though. Here's the thing.
Yours are the one, and every single other one that's ever been found in any other species ever is one thing. Yours is different.
Corn snake there, you can pick out the head axanthic or head anerythristic. Tell me, show me the corns. I'm going to have a clutch. Gonna dump them out. All right, Nick,
I will explain to you.
out.
I will explain to you why that is incredibly difficult and you're unlikely to succeed. It's the same reason for your hog nose sticks.
Recessive? Is that the answer?
No, it's not.
All right,
It's fucking not. But the reason why you can't tell with your corn snakes and you can't tell is why the freaking why I have this argument with hybrid morph carpet python people too, is because if you had locality specific hognose and you had an axanthic that popped up in a very narrow population, you would be able to tell. Because what happens is like you get a very small reduction in the yellow pigment production in the heterozygotes and then a much larger reduction obviously in your homozygous animals. But the goalposts are very narrow in a small population. Let's say that you have 100 magical units of yellow. We're just going to make up yellow pigment units. And the normal average is 100. But the deviation is plus or minus 50. So they average from 50 to 150. The average has 100 of these imaginary pigment units. If you reduce that by 20% in your heterozygotes and 90% in the homozygotes, which gives you a real axanthic looking thing, there's a tiny bit left, but the vast majority is gone. But you get that 20% smaller decrease in your heterozygous animals. If you do that, if you had a narrow population that was pretty uniform, you'd probably be able to tell they look a little bit off. But you don't. You have a population, by your own admission, earlier in the same podcast, with animals from fucking Montana to Texas and everywhere in between. So the goalposts, instead of being between 50 units and 150 units, it's between like 10 units and 300 units. How could you possibly notice a 20% deviation in the amount of baseline level of yellow pigment when the goalposts are this far apart? Because if I use 20%, you can still have, it's still so wide, it becomes undetectable. It's
but if I'm using
only detectable in very narrow circumstances.
If I'm making like my red face hognose though, or like, because the thing is, you're showing these ones with these very phenotypic differences in locale ranges because they're going to have the just different, the wild type alleles that are the makeup of that region, that locale.
I'm saying that makes it very easy it makes it much easier to see. The hognose gene pool being what it is, which basically continent wide at this point, north to south, all that stuff, it makes there is almost the goalposts for how much yellow pigment any hognose could have are now not in any of these different regions. You'd have the goalposts would be whatever they'd be between here and here and here and here. But now it's all mixed together. So now your goalposts are this wide. When your goalposts of how much yellow you can have are this wide,
right.
You can't. How are you going to notice this much? You can't notice this much difference when the goalposts are this far apart because you move it a little bit, it's still super wide. It's just so much. And then when you add in the phenotypic effects of 9 other morphs that are all in there, it becomes impossible to detect a small deviation. I got stuff sitting right behind me that I can tell which ones are head axanthic if they're normals. If you add any other morphs in there, any other shit in there, it gets very murky because that small, subtle difference becomes overwhelmed by all the other background noise.
But if I'm adding red phase or something like even like a lemon ghost, that's increasing to yellow.
But it's going to vary, and the variation makes
too
much background noise
with it. I understand what you're saying, but I brought that up last time. I was like, well, we could have a bunch of amelanistic that aren't really amelanistic. Maybe they have like such a small amount of tyrosinase that it's almost not expressed. You're not really seeing it. So really, what I was growing up, and I knew what the definition. I read it as axanthic and anerythristic, and you'd go to these reptile shows. You'd see an Anery corn, a little bit of yellow by its face. You'd see an axanthic spider ball python on Kevin McCurley's table, and it'd be like, that's got a little bit of yellow on it. And it's like, so I understand like the definition of axanthic and anerythristic should really be changed, but when we're referring to it, we're always kind of meaning like hypoxanthic, really. Yeah, they're not really ever missing all of it. And that might be
hypoxanthic is awkward to say, unfortunately.
It is. It doesn't sound good.
I'm not bothered by calling things axanthic, but I might kind of get to be a stickler in my old age. Like, it is not really axanthic, and it's like I don't think we do the hobby any favors by clinging to things we know to be incorrect. Yeah, by referring to things as codom when we know that's no...
We take this from geneticists. They're all doing this shit.
It's lazy.
Stuff all the time.
It's still lazy. It's lazy. Like it's not hard. No, everybody's lazy, and why we rely on these terms of convenience out of laziness. It's not that difficult to say. I mean, what is a super? That's a stupid hobby term. That makes us, We
It's
should.
referring
There's.
to a dominant or incomplete dominant.
I know what it is. I know what the hobby, but it's like from a scientific perspective. Like, really, we're gonna call it super. That's just so unscientific.
The super is jargon in the reptile community. It's kind
It
of
is.
like lawyers and stuff, and like they use jargon to make things sound different, or they seem to do it to make things sound.
I would be happy if I could get on my soapbox for live long enough to outlive people using the term codom. That I would settle for just that. That's not a thing. That is not a thing. I'm not ever going to win on all these. People are not going to stop calling these things Axanthic. It's too entrenched. Even though it is wrong, it's never going away. I accept that it's never going away.
It's mostly right, though. It's mostly right. You gotta agree. Another thing is too, it might be.
I get why initially they labeled them that.
Carotenoids, because some of it's made up through like dietary. So these mutations that cut it off, some of it's still being synthesized through diet. I mean, I don't know exactly how it works, but there might be a reason to why there's some pigments. And here's the thing: I can actually line breed more yellows and reds to show up in, like, let's say, a snow individual.
It's a bit more complicated in that there's not just one round of pigment distribution. Most of these snakes go through a color change, and whether that's picking up a little bit more pigment as they get older, or whether it's more dramatic like in a carpet python or a ring python, but all these things change. And what it is that they hatch or are born with their base layer of these pigments. As they mature, and that base layer of yellow pigment and black pigment is governed by a set of genes. The morphs that we covet so much are controlling, blocking, boogering up the genes that control the base layer of pigment. Okay? There are secondary waves of pigment distribution that occur later in life in most of these species, and those base genes don't necessarily affect those. Like an amelanistic snake, it's breaking the snake's ability to produce that pigment. So it can never... So when the time comes for the second wave of black pigment distribution, it still can't make it. It's boogering up its ability to make it. What's happening with what we call Axanthic, it's not really breaking its ability to make it. It's boogering up its distribution of it. It can still make it, but it's blocking the distribution of it. You end up with what looks like the same result. But when that second round of yellow pigment distribution comes in later with age, it can still make that pigment, and that second wave isn't affected by the gene that suppressed the distribution of the first wave, which is why snow ball pythons and snow corns and all these snow boas look super white when they're babies, and then when they're adults, where did all that yellow come from? Because that's the secondary waves of pigment that get produced later that weren't affected by that gene at the beginning. Ergo, you're not Axanthic, because where did that yellow? You can still make that.
Well, it took away some of the yellow that's being controlled by certain genes.
It's blocking the distribution. It's not letting the pigment be distributed. It's not necessarily destroying the animal's ability to produce it, as is evidenced by the production of those pigments later in life. It's blocking the distribution of it, and that's a different process. Whereas amelanism is literally amelanism. You just cannot, now, not ever. But what we call Axanthic, which isn't really Axanthic, it's a different type of mutation. It's working a different way. It's inherited. It's a different thing.
Definitely, yeah.
I
completely.
Which is why why do all ball python morphs brown out? Oh, why? Because the second round they pick up yellow pigment as they get older that manifests. That's where the brown comes from. Is the second release of putting out more pigment later in life. It's why like jungle carpet pythons hatch out charcoal gray and pale gray, and that they gain more yellow pigment after hatching, and the pale gray becomes yellow, and they also gain more black, and the charcoal gray turns black, and they end up being black and yellow because they get a secondary waves of more of those pigments as they get older. Yeah. So
I agree with you there. That makes sense.
So that's why morphs don't always. Why a lot of the stuff looks really awesome when it's babies, not as awesome later because it didn't.
I took some notes while we were writing because you said everybody's lazy. So I put lazy and fat. Then I drew like the doodle, and I put LG head Axanthic to touch on that, and then I brought up the leucistic.
I have been lazy and just used terms I know to be incorrect too. Like because it's just easier than having to ever explain it every time. But it is, I think that stop saying codom and just say incomplete dominant. That is such an easy thing to do. That is an easy lift.
It is.
Switching to hypoxanthic, that's a mouthful.
Hypoxanthic does sound
it does, and it's like I don't.
A stands for without. How about the A stands for mostly without sometimes.
It means
maybe
none.
Sometimes we lose a bunch of it. That's what the A stands for, Dave. Dave.
All right, so Nick,
I am an atheist. That means I do not believe in any gods, not some gods. It's
You're
an
everything's
atheist.
on a spectrum.
If you're you don't believe in any.
Everything's
No, I
on
don't.
a spectrum,
Hey,
Nick.
Nick, have you ever
I do not.
considered you haven't met the right God yet?
You haven't met the right
The
guy
right
yet.
one, right? Yeah. No, I'm pretty.
Hey,
It would take a lot of evidence to convince me, but if you've got the evidence, like I'll hear you out. Like it's like I'm like
There's a slim chance there.
you're saying there's
guy.
so you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance.
So Nick, I've got a marketing idea, and then we're gonna have to stop talking about Axanthic. I think we
Okay.
You know those rubber bands they put on lobsters, the claws.
Yes.
You should do those with your company name for people's wrists, and every time they say Kodam, they can snap it. And then
Snap it. It's like just ow. It's like
Yeah. Good.
constant negative reinforcement.
I think it could work. I think it's a great idea.
I'm just saying,
I
like
am
if you
hearing
look
it
at
less and
all
less. I don't hear co-dominant that much.
I have
ever
been
at
on
all.
that. I have been on the incomplete dominant soapbox for about a decade now. I have noticed though that if you just keep, eventually, that you can get traction with stuff. Like there are a few other areas that I just like, get on these soapboxes and I just keep harping on it. And I'm like, I've got the majority of the carpet community to stop calling things IJs or Irian Jaya carpet pythons. What with that not being a real place that exists or anything. Like, but the majority now, after
Irian Jaya
15
doesn't
No, it doesn't exist. Find it on a map. Where's the Irian Jaya carpet python? Yeah, there's no
It's
such
above
place.
Australia. It's like
It
part
was-
of Indonesia.
No. It was the name of a province of Indonesia that they changed the name in like 1976. It was like, and it's not even where the snakes are. It's this ridiculous misnomer. It's like before they changed the name of that province before the first snakes were ever even imported from there. It's like somebody just, where these come from? They looked at an old out-of-date map. Oh, they're from Irian Jaya. No such place.
Sounds like there's a lot of communication issues with these people when it comes to describing species or like origins. And
There
stuff,
is.
because it's
There
happening
is.
a lot in this. Is there just like nobody living in Australia, so nobody can talk to somebody about this shit?
When you
Does it
get
seem
to-
just keep happening in like Indonesia and Australia. all
Well, a lot of places, particularly in eastern Indonesia and Papua, and less so in Australia, but a lot of these places have multiple names. Like most of what we call eastern Indonesia now used to be the Dutch East Indies. It was all a Dutch colony. So there's like Dutch names. And then there's like Indonesian names. And there's the names, the local people that have always been there call these places. So you'll find maps of the same islands with multiple different names. Sometimes look at like, okay, you know what a Savu python is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and some
They kinda
maps
look
will
like a
show the
matte
island
box,
as
more silvery.
yeah, they're their own thing, but they're like some apps will show that as Sawu with a W. Some is Savu with a V. The Latin name is Savuensis with a V, but the island is Sawus, and so, depending on what map you're looking at, it's like sometimes you'll see maps that have and that causes confusion.
Somebody in chat says that their grandparents were from Irian Jaya.
I'm calling bullshit, but okay. Irian Jaya. I'm just like, there's no such place. Why are we using this? That entire island, both sides of the political boundary, is Papua. The people on both sides are Papuans. The carpet pythons are on both sides of the island, and most of them are on the Papua New Guinea side of the island. Why are we calling them Irian Jaya carpets when there's no such province, no such place, no such name, no such snake?
What
It's
should we
all
call them?
one
Like,
thing.
like Indonesian
Papuan-
guys? What should we call them? Like Indonesian guy pythons?
Papuan carpet pythons.
Oh,
It's like a
Papuan
perfect.
carpet
Yeah,
pythons, okay.
it's no matter what
Sounds a
they
little
change.
better.
Yeah, it works. It's always correct. Like it's
Now,
just
Papuan doesn't roll off the tongue like IJ does.
IJ. And the other thing is, people called him IJ. Half the people would spell it wrong. Iran Jaya. They'd leave the I out. It's Iran Jaya. Like, the number of times.
Oh, that'd be bad because then they're like, these things are from the Middle East. It's like, no. It's like you're like way off. Different continent, dude.
Oh my God! Like, well, we used to have like
So you mean Trump's bombing these good snakes? It's like, no.
in the
Not
condor
even
community for a
close.
while. There were condors that would come in from a small island. Well, it's not small. It's a decent sized island called Kofiau, and they were. These adults would come in and they would be bright yellow as adults. Some of them, not all of them. And they would call them canaries because they were canary chondros. And the number of people thought they were from the Canary Islands. Like, Canary Islands are off the coast of Africa. What are you talking about? on the west coast of Africa. They're from the Canary Islands. Like, oh my God. Like, it's just...
I will give you one. This is one that I was actually kind of embarrassed. I thought Aldabras were from another island chain that was like part of the Galapagos. I didn't know that as islands off of Madagascar up until like 2 years ago.
Yeah, just
Didn't know.
evolutionary convergence of giant tortoises on isolated islands on the
It's pretty
opposite,
cool. Yeah.
completely the exact opposite side of the planet.
Right. They are on southern hemispheres, though. Both on southern hemispheres, but I don't think that
Yeah.
matters much. They're both close to the equator. They're both, equatorial or whatever.
Yep. Tortoises are a bit more seaworthy than people
We
think they
got
are.
somebody else. This might be rage bait, Nick. I have
Probably.
a globe that literally has Iran Jaya on it. He says he has a globe. Can you get us a picture of this globe?
Go get a new globe. Your globe is like 30 years old, 40 years old. Go buy a new globe. They're not that expensive.
All right, I'm going to type this guy. Nick just said
make
you're a
globes
fucking
anymore?
globalist.
Your globe,
Nick just said
your globe
you're a
also
globalist.
probably has countries like Yugoslavia that doesn't exist. Also, I
you're
suspect
gonna make the
it has like
mad.
your globe also probably has East and West Germany. If your globe still has East and West Germany on it, you probably need a new globe.
All right.
Because East and West Germany, that's about the time period that stopped happening. If it's probably got those on there too.
And if your genetics book says Axanthic is incomplete dominant, you need a new genetics book. You
No,
need to update that.
no.
Yes.
So, you work with Axanthic projects, though, right?
Yeah, I've got a shitload of them behind me.
When you sell heads, how do you market that?
As hets.
Yeah, it's hats. You could
They
do
are
you could-
hets.
You could
The
do
fact
that.
that the fact that the hets are obviously hets doesn't mean doesn't change the fact that they are not hets.
You're saying they're obviously hets. Now, in my
Yeah.
hog nose,
Hey,
how come there
Jeff,
isn't?
We said we weren't doing this again. We said we were going back to the Axanthics.
Well, no, you said we were. You said we were done. I never said I was done, and Nick never said he was done either. He's the guest. He can do whatever he wants. Nick, if you want to
knew
move
this.
on, we can
You
move
knew we
on.
were going to have this argument round 2. It was coming. Like it's like
Hey, knock it out. Knock it out. I'm gonna look at.
I don't hybridize carpets. I keep everything really tightly focused. It is.
Oh,
I can tell.
is
With the
there
popwood
any
carpets, it's
way-
much easier because the natural color phase of neonates is super crazy bright red. So when you knock, and they're all like that, so when you knock it back, it's obvious. In
What-
those, coastal carpets are very pale gray anyway. It's a lot harder to tell, but you can kind of tell because they look kind of axanthic. The hets are pretty obvious. But
What
I'm not
gives you
making
the
a bunch of hybrids.
information, though, that all Axanthics are going to be incomplete dominant.
I've yet to see evidence of a single one that wasn't.
I
It's
gave
just-
some evidence. I'm like the coolest hognose breeder, and I can't tell any of my Axanthics anymore. And I've been doing this
But I-
since I was a little kid.
But I told you why you can't. The same reason why, I got this argument that.
Why? Yeah, I understand, but you gotta
It's-
remember, some of my groups, though, I produce a lot, and they all have this specific looks, and the looks do vary. As far as the pigmentation, there is a
What I'm saying is,
climb to it.
they're
but
not.
There's nothing I've ever seen where I was like, this one is head Axanthic or even
Like,
looks a little.
here's the
different.
other aspect to this. Like, the homozygous Axanthics are always outside of the range of normal variation. They have a normal range of variation. They are always well outside of it. That is obviously a thing. The heterozygous animals that are visual, they are always within the normal range of variation. They are never outside of they're always within the normal range of variation. They're just clustered on one end of it. It is having an effect on the expression of that pigment, and it has a phenotypic effect. Whether or not it is easy is irrelevant to whether it's incomplete dominant. If it has an effect in its heterozygous state, it is incomplete dominant. Whether it's super obvious to us doesn't matter.
But
And
you
it
can say
is
that
not.
about any other morph then too. You can say, well, maybe
Yeah,
there's
you can.
Well, because the thing
About
is,
a lot of them.
I'll give you. This is actually Dave might like this because Dave I think is done with this one, but this is a little different. The first head Axanthic I ever picked up was from Brian Barczyk. I picked it out of his facility. He had all these head Axanthics, and he had some that were a little more interesting looking. Okay, you're gonna say maybe this is, but the one was like some were pretty obvious. Some had like missing head patterns, and the funny thing is, a lot of hets and pos hets and hognose morphs and sometimes double hets will have missing head pattern or obscure head pattern, but it usually favors males. Like a lot of times they'll always be like males for some reason. So it has to do with probably like the testosterone or the androgen, hormone testosterone. Because it's even with the cinnamon hognose, I'm not going to get into that too much, but we noticed there's a heavy preference and expressions in the males, and the only difference is hormonal. But anyway, or that we could tell at least at that point it's hormonal. That's the only thing that makes sense. But going back, so I picked out this missing head pattern, head Axanthic from Brian, and it's very grayish. and a lot of them were very normalish and gray. But I bred it to one of my Montana locale female that I had at the time. She's like a mix, like Montana locale. She wasn't pure, but she was mostly Montana, and she was very grayish brown too. And so these were pretty pigmentless, very dull snakes. Brian Barczyk, he actually at one point had the craziest hognose collection. And the funny thing I always found funny about it was he didn't have many poly variants. They were pretty basic looking hognose if they weren't mutations. So he had like PTAs, albinos, Axanthics. But anyway, so I bred that Axanthic. I made the Poshets. I'd always keep back anything interesting or different looking, even back then. And, I tried to keep back anything that I thought was a little odd looking. And I bred them back. Some of the Poshets proved out. Some of them did not. And then I later, bred more. I produced more hognose like this where they'd have like missing head patterns or these little obscure things from these recessive traits. And I found there's no correlation to them being hets. Like I have ones with het markers. Doesn't mean that they're hets. Like my het Swiss chocolate. We talked about this last time. I had some ones that they were 66% Poshets and they had these crazy markers that I'd only ever see on full het Swiss chocolates. And even with like, partially unrelated ones, I'm not really seeing anything like this. Like I'd get anacondas with complete checkerboard belly pattern and they're Poshet Swiss. And a couple of them proved out for sure not het, even though they had these het markers. So sometimes there could be neighboring.
Then they weren't markers.
Exactly, they weren't markers.
Just something else that was traveling along with it and just wasn't necessarily part of that. It just,
it could be linked to it. Some of those things I've noticed that there's similar behaviors with hets and Poshets having what appear to be markers from completely different recessive mutations. Missing head patterns. I've seen it in my het Lucy's. I've seen it with double het sable toffee stuff a lot. And it usually favors males. Usually the males are the ones always with the missing head pattern. And you're not seeing this in like wild type hognose. It's very rare to just breed locales or just normals and get this. Unless you line breed for it, then you can start to get it. But anyway, some of these ones that appear to have head markers, there's nothing comes out of it. So even with the het Axanthics, if I made Poshets, like, with ones like Snows that had missing head pattern, it doesn't mean they're going to be het. But, I don't know. I don't think there's going to be anything that changes your mind, but I would like to send
evidence.
you
I need evidence.
I give you some evidence. You're not going to like it, though. You're going to say it's anecdotal, and even though I've seen this witness, like, I've been breeding Axanthic since I was 24 years old.
I'm saying that the structure of the hognose market and your collection is almost designed to make something like this impossible to detect because
I understand what you're saying.
It's so varied. If you had some really narrowly focused inbred snakes that had just no genetic variation at all, it becomes easy to see small deviations. When you have a very diverse, ultra diverse gene pool from over this huge geographic area all rolled together, it just makes all that genetic variation is probably good for the overall health of your hognose collection because you have a lot of that, but it makes this sort of thing very difficult to see. I work with a lot of Australian stuff, so the gene pool is fuck all nothing. So there is not, I wish I had that problem, but it's very easy to see in a lot of these things because your gene pool is by necessity so constrained that there isn't a lot of, if you don't make hybrids, you have so little variation that these small deviations in pigment synthesis and pigment production and distribution become apparent.
So if
you mix them together, I wouldn't. If I was making jungle jags and all this kind of crap, I wouldn't be able to tell either. Which is why the people arguing with me about why it's not recessive, why it's recessive and carpet. Those are the guys making jungle jags and making a bunch of hybrid carpets. Like, well, yeah, you bred the snake that has 10 times more yellow to the snake where the Axanthic gene came from, and you wonder why you can't tell why this a 10% or 20% reduction when you just blew the goalposts miles apart, and now you're never going to be able to see it because it's a little tiny thing.
Now,
it becomes impossible to see.
An Axanthic hognose, and let's say I breed it to my South Dakota female. I keep those babies back, and I breed them back to another South Dakota locale. I try to get them like almost 90-some%. Yeah, and then I keep a lot of them, and I start inbreeding them a lot over a 20-year project just to prove Nick Mutton wrong. And I was not able to tell and show you that, like, the babies, like, after 20 years, would you finally believe Axanthic is recessive?
If you photographed it all and you committed to that, yes. But it would only, even if you were able to prove that, it would only prove that version of Axanthic is recessive.
I'm saying,
it doesn't mean anything about any of the others.
Hognose is recessive. I'm saying most of these other Axanthics don't even ball pythons.
It's not. It's just like, I just think that what is more likely? that every other type, it's in every other case it's one thing, but this is the one exception, or that it's just really hard to tell? It's like it's probably that is more likely.
I agree with you on that one because like with like amelanistic animals,
it would be easier if you bred them. It might be easier if you bred them into redder and redder and redder animals to look for the discrepancy. What could be with ball pythons was I saw
because then there's just too much of a range and you're saturating it.
No, if you bred it back and back and back like 3 generations, where you started to getting. The goalposts are too wide for how much red and yellow pigment you could have. If you narrow the,
done that. I bred a ton of red. I have Axanthic lines that are like really, really red from back. It's like back to reds a lot.
You need like consistently in the baseline where you constrain the amount of baseline variation in that pigment to a narrow enough band, whether it's all the way in a lot of it or all the way in not very much of it. Might be easier to see if it was a lot of it, because if it was all the way in not very much of it, het Axanthics just look like milder versions of Axanthics most of the time. What cued me into it first was like I saw someone selling some pastel ball pythons that were het Axanthic. I'm like, holy shit! It was really obvious that the yellow was really tuned down. Yeah, really blunted, almost looked like a pewter. It was like, wow, it was really obvious. And then
I think I've seen that before because I remember okay, Dave's about to say something.
Yeah.
Well, I just in boa constrictors with the BPIT positives when they're past at Anery. The ugly ones with like a really dull pigment are the ones that typically prove out.
Yeah, it's like
typically prove out. Do they always prove out though, Dave?
It's a pretty high percentage, man. I'll pay more attention.
But some of them don't. Some of them don't. Did you? You just said some of them don't.
Man. Yeah, we can make the pastel argument again.
I made behind me. I produced it finally. It was like a goal from years ago, and I finally made it. I made I know some of your listeners aren't familiar with like carpet python mutations, but in coastal carpet pythons, there's a mutation called a caramel, which is kind of a low-rent hypo type thing. It reduces the dark pigment a bit, but it also increases the yellow pigment a bit. So it pumps up the yellow and reduces the black. And you know, with like kind of a golden, an animal's kind of a golden-y color. And there's a homozygous super caramel, and there's a jaguar, which is just a spider carpet. You know, same thing as you see in every. That gene occurs in a lot of species now, doesn't it?
Yeah, skull face hog's kind of similar.
Yeah, is there a super skull face hog, or is it a dead white snake?
It's a piebald. It looks like it's maybe lives. The guy that I'm going to try to breed some just to see. The guy that produced it is like, you don't want to ask him anything. He's like, he just tells lies. And he's the most unreliable fucker on the face of the planet. So why would he get anything?
Right.
He shows it hatching, and he's like, oh, look, he's like hatch another one. But he's not showing it when it gets older. Yeah. And this guy's a bragger, and I'm like, why aren't you showing it when it's bigger, son?
Same reason why people lied about there being a super spider ball for 1,000,000 years, because being het for dead is really bad for business. It's like, do you want to buy this $18,000 spider ball python that's just het for dead and wobbly? No. So you just don't tell anybody about it being wobbly, and you don't tell anybody being wobbly. You don't tell anybody about being het for dead. You just pretend that there is no super spider for years. For decades, you just pretend it doesn't exist because it's bad for business.
I don't know. Het for dead sounds kind of cool. That sounds like something that Kevin McCurley would name something.
It's like it's true. They're het for dead, and there's a bunch of other lethal mutations. Usually, they're white. Lethal white mutations are very common in the natural world in domesticated animals. There are lethal white mutations in dogs, in horses, in freaking all sorts of livestock. These mutations where the homozygous expression is white and dead. That's not a unique thing to spider ball pythons, and you see that in a lot of things. We shouldn't be surprised.
Have you ever watched Tracy Barker's VHS on ball pythons, the old school one?
No, I remember that, but no.
Yeah, it was pretty good. They go through like just a couple mutations. You'd hate the ending. She opens up a bag that came in, and she took out 2 spider ball pythons.
Right. I don't hate on spider ball pythons. It is what it is, not the snake's fault. You know, it's like I don't. It just is.
If it makes you feel any better, they don't even exist really that much in the hobby anymore. Most people phase them out. There's just like an understanding. It kind of just happened.
The cycle of the spider ball python repeats itself over and over and over again. Now, what is the scoria boa? I'm looking at you. What's a scoria boa? It's a spider boa. It's the same thing. And separate, it's really, unfortunately, it's incredibly good looking. Like, even I'm like not even into boas, and even I'm like, holy shit, that is a good looking snake. Like,
sounds like you're chasing a trend there, Nick.
I have one pair of boa constrictors, and they're crawl key boas, little tiny locality dwarf boas. I'm not going to chase it. There, I will admit, it is a visually stunning. Wow, it's stunning. But it's a spider boa. You ever notice, like, gee, after 25 years, there's still no super scoria? I wonder why. It's a dead white snake. Spoiler alert. Like, they're never going to see a super scoria. It's the same thing. But people don't talk about it because it's, all the talk about the missing super scoria that you never hear because it's bad for business. People just keep, it's like,
there's an understanding in communities what to do and what not to do. And if you look at boa mutations, all the supers are going to be deadly a lot of the time. So, like, you can still do things, and there's still, like, the spider ball bite that was a wobbly degenerate. If that thing showed up at the hobby today, it would not be a risk. Like, it was just a time and a place for that. A lot of that stuff's gone now, man.
Yeah, I mean, they still are around, but not nearly some. I know it's one of those things now that, like, it makes your combo worth less if it's there.
Yeah.
it has negative value. Like, it's like...
literally, I was making sunset spiders when sunsets were like $6,000, and a spider sunset was $3,000. And that was just the way it was. So yeah, it was.
People would buy them so they could breed them, and then they just cross their fingers that they hit bad spider odds.
They're going to assume half their animals were going to be shit, so they only paid half the price to the parents. And that's been on high-end projects.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's the spider. If it came out now, would not be. It came out at a time when there was this fever pitch for anything that's heritable, and things are just blowing up, and it's pretty dramatic. It's pretty dramatic. I remember when they rolled out the first pastel spiders, and you're like, "Oh my god, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen!" Like, it was like just so insane. It's like the first combo ball pipe. It was just nuts, and people were going crazy for that. So
I'm gonna show
Bumblebees
you a
do look
really
good.
beautiful ball python. Hold on. This is one we made years ago on accident, but
what is it? A calico spider?
Calico spider, inchy black pastel, but it turned the flames like red. Only time I've ever seen like a deep red pigment. He's wonky as fuck, and I still got him to this day.
Yeah, because you mixed things that shouldn't be mixed.
Well,
like,
some of them maybe, arguably.
Okay, if a spider is defective and it has white on its flanks, and you mix it with calico, which conveniently also doesn't have a homozygous form, conveniently enough, and also has white on its flanks, just not the reduced dorsal pattern. Every calico spider I've ever seen around was goofy. They're all messed up. It's like you probably could have surmised that was not going to go well. It's
I'll be honest, Nick, never considered it and never thought about it to this very moment. You make a really good point.
Yeah, it's like don't mix things like that. Like, it's there's certain things you just know are going to be bad. Like mixing a spot nose with a spider. It's like, I wonder if that's going to be wonky as hell. Yeah, I can guarantee you it is. Like, remember the first time I saw a picture of one, it's like, why would anybody even do that? It's like, you know what's going to happen. It's like making a sable spider or something. You know it's going to be a train wreck. Why do that?
Call it like a spoider, spot nose spider.
It's like the first time I saw a spot nose spider, and it like they're like trying to act like it was normal, and look like it was trying to drill a hole in a tabletop with its head sideways. Like it's like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. It sounds
obviously,
like
yeah. It's like, well, the homozygous expression of spot nose is a train wreck, it's wobbly, and the heterozygous expression of the spider is wobbly, and the homozygous is dead. Like, it's these things are. Anytime you're, don't do that. It's gonna be a mess, and surprise it is. I don't. I mean, I don't know. I can't bag on the spider people. I have. There's a couple of jaguar carpets back there I produced this year. I produced like 5 a year, I think.
Some guy left the chat. He's a spider ball python guy. He said he was about to cry. He had to leave.
You had to leave?
Yeah.
To leave the chat?
All right, Nick, what do you think is more likely to exist? God or recessive Axanthic?
Recessive Axanthic.
Yeah.
All right, that's baby steps there, guys. Baby steps. Nice. That's awesome. I like that.
We got some baby steps going on.
I've not seen it. I don't believe in it either, but I'm open. I find the odds of it being. There's no reason why it couldn't exist, but they just don't seem to.
But
it just seems like every example.
Ball python head Axanthic, and you can see it. How come I can make head Axanthic hoggos with red phase or crosses or anything, and even for the original pos heads I made, I can't find anything reliable.
Look at
this again, and we're going to bring up the I'm gonna bring up Blizzard Leopard Gecko next.
Look at the baseline level. Take a pastel ball python, no other genes involved, and look at the baseline level of variation yellow pigment in a pastel ball with no other genes involved.
See where you're going.
It's pretty narrow.
Hoping, but yes.
You can see it. You can see it. That's all it is. It's like the function of the range. Your normal range of variation is this wide now, so you can't notice something that's this big of a deviation.
It could be a polyvariant though, because you could take a nice pastel line and bring it to an Axanthic, and Axanthic without the Axanthic is like a mud brown.
I'm having the same
type ball python, making a shitty pastel.
I'm having the same problem. One of my life goals is to be the guy who figures out how all the Amazon tree boa color phases are inherited, which is a problem so complicated that people just give up. It's random. It's totally not random.
It's just polygene. So like,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
Gotta be. Well, there's many alleles that are contributing to it. Which
I don't think it is. I'm not going to tell you because I want to publish something.
Okay.
I've been working on this with a friend of mine doing controlled test breedings, and one of them I've already got figured out.
You think it's hormonal related?
No, I think they're standard Mendelian genetics. The problem is like if I gave you
is incomplete dominant.
I think imagine this. If I gave you a pair of ball pythons, and one was a 5-morph snake, a mixture of incomplete dominant and recessive genes, and the other one was a 6-gene combo, also a mixture of different incomplete dominant and recessive stuff, maybe there's some overlap, and I said, here's your one pair of snakes, tell me what a wild-type ball python looks like. It would be really damn difficult to figure out what the hell is going on when you're starting with things that have stacked on top of each other over eons. Like, it would be very difficult to tease that apart when you don't even know what was the original Amazon tree boa ancestral stock. What did it look like? You don't even know that. Where would you start? You have to isolate one at a time, figure one thing out, and over time you figure it out. I'm pretty close. I'm pretty confident now. I have another one figured out, and in the next couple of years I'll figure that out. At that point, 2 of the major ones I will know and have quantified, and then you'll pick another one.
So you're saying, well, here's the thing. I get it because like
one of them is incomplete dominant, and one is already know one is recessive, and the other one I'm really pretty confident is going to be incomplete dominant. And so far, all the data that I've amassed from other people, my own breedings, and the friend of mine I work with breeds a lot of Amazon tree boas. 100% of the data agrees with this hypothesis, and 0% contradicts it. It's 100% in the I'm right column and 0% contradictory. That's still not enough. It's like you gotta. But so far, I'm getting increasingly confident. There's also. I'm gonna figure out 3 things at one time in the next few years. How one of these color phases inherited, a couple quirks on the morph front also.
Are you talking about the Amazon tree boas with like the Halloween phase and like stuff like that?
All of this stuff. Yes.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing. It's funny because, like, let's say like a mutation could pop up in the wild. Let's say like a hypermelanistic or a melanistic, and if its survivability is really good or even helps it a little bit, and then it exists for tens of thousands of years and becomes a heavy part of the population, it is thought to be that of a wild type, which it is, but it was originally a mutation. So wild types can be a combination of mutations and polygenics. There is a lot of original mutations. Kind of like that's the whole science of evolution. That
Amazon tree boas. There's overlap. I believe
you.
With like tree vipers and arboreal vipers, like eyelash vipers and some of the Asian vipers, where they're so almost random, where there's like a million different color phases in the same litter. Basically, there'll be a million different colors. It's like that, but those weren't. It's not random. Those are all at one point were different mutations for different things that got entrenched and just built up over time. Trying to run the clock backwards and tease those things apart to figure out how they're inherited. It's not magic. It's not random. It's just really difficult to suss that out. And I'm like, nobody else is going to spend 25 years doing this, but I will because I think it's super interesting.
I'm going to do it with Axanthic hog nose now. I'm about to prove somebody wrong. Not meant to.
That's easy. That's an easy one. But be prepared for disappointment. I think the odds that it's the one outlier from a trend that is across everything is unlikely. It's like people are still trying to tell you that, this pied is recessive. It's not. No pieds are ever recessive. You ever seen a recessive pied anything? No.
No.
They're always like, no, but we keep calling it recessive, don't we? And it's always that subtle. The hets are like subtly Subtle, but different. But every once in a while, you'll see a piebald ball python that is completely invisible. You ever hatched one that had no indicators it was a het pied at all? Because even I have.
I've heard of people with het marker ones that turned out not to be het. And that kind of follows like my Swiss chocolate stuff, and then also the blizzard leopard gecko, which I wrote it down in this corner. Most letter that I was trying to get my money.
Most het pieds will tell you that they're het pieds, but once in a while they don't, and they're still het pieds. I produced back when I bred ball pythons. 90% of the het pieds I produced would have obvious. Oh, that's a het. But I kept one back that had nothing, a female, and I produced it myself. It proved it was obviously a het. I made it. I bred it. It was a het. It had nothing out of the ordinary. But inconsistency doesn't mean anything. Still incomplete dominant. It doesn't. There's no. If it ever affects this, it's incomplete dominant.
I think genetics are very complicated. I think there's other alleles that are at play that are common to show up with these hets and pos hets that make this phenotypic appearance look this way. And so you think there's a correlation, but there is.
I think with the pied thing,
you have to show that it's that actual allele doing it, because like the blizzard leopard gecko, I'll give you an example. That one's really cool. When you make het blizzards, a lot of them are really high speckled. So if you breed them within a line of leopard geckos that already has a decent amount of spots, it adds a ton, and it like micro fragments them, so they're like really, really speckled. Like my best speckled leopard geckos I ever made were always het blizzards. So naturally, I wanted to make some high speckled leopard geckos without blizzard. Correct? That's what I wanted to do. Turns out, the further I got away from them actually being het, it was unlikely to get them. But them being high speckled also did not mean that they would always be het blizzard. So that to me was showing there's a different allele or multiple alleles or corresponding alleles that are tied to the recessive mutation that make this phenotypic appearance, which would make it look like there's het markers when there really isn't. It's a different allele.
Things don't really get tied to other things, though. It's like it.
Well, yeah, they bring
with like to go back to like
they're inherited together in clusters.
Yes, but that over time, even that it's not always that can be severed and changed. That's not always carved in stone.
It has genetic recombination has to happen if they're really close proximity. And then like I was reading about genetic inheritance of the ginger gene in humans, like speckling versus red hair, are correlated. They actually found that there's a few different freckle type gene mutations that aren't tied to red hair. And that one's kind of because they said that the geneticists, they said at the end of it, they said they still fully don't understand it because they says the freckling doesn't always mean you're a carrier, but it generally does. Like my dad's great grandma, she had red hair, so he was a pos het, and I'm actually a pos het of a pos het, and I happen to have some freckles going on. So I might actually be a gene carrier, but sometimes these freckles don't always mean anything.
As dark as I am, I actually have some freckles, and there is fuck all no chance I am heterozygous for ginger. It's like it's not always. I think like you talk about something like a pieds being. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, hell yeah. I got all West African blood in me.
What percent?
Oh, it's hard to tell because I can't trace my ancestry because slavery. It makes it pretty difficult to trace your ancestry. Yes, but that's just looking at haplotypes and stuff. It just gives you a rudimentary estimate. It came back a little lower than I would have thought.
No?
What?
Is it a close estimate or no?
It depends. When I had my DNA run, that was probably a decade ago, and if the longer that stuff becomes available, it gets better and better. I probably should have that rerun. It came back as like 27% or something, which is a little lower than I would have thought based on family history.
Okay.
But it's very difficult to tease out like African American ancestry because there are no African Americans who have purely African DNA. There's always white DNA in them for obvious, unfortunate reasons. And that is, since that doesn't get recorded, it's never quite as much as you think it is. But it's interesting looking at your own genetic history. I can tell that I can see Afro-Caribbean DNA, which is, but all that's part of the transatlantic slave trade. There's kind of a stopover point in the Caribbean and stuff, and that's just how that worked. But you can see that reflected in my DNA and all these weird haplotypes from, it's really interesting. For me, that's the only way I can really look into my deep ancestry because you kind of hit that wall prior to like 1870 where you just the trail of written records goes a little cold for the vast majority of people. So,
Yeah, we're so anymore. We're so many mixed locales. You know, it's hard.
I find it interesting.
I'm mostly Slovakian.
I really wanted to just find out how much Neanderthal and like archaic hominid DNA I have, because I want it to be a big number, because I think that'd be cool. Like I just think that's interesting. Like I don't know.
I don't know. I wonder. Like some people seem pretty interested in that. I never really cared. Like my sister did a DNA thing. That's why I kind of know. I'm like, I don't give a shit. If they're like, hey Jeff, we'll tell you exactly what DNA you have for $5, I'd be like, I actually don't give a fuck.
I find it it's a curiosity to me. It doesn't.
Yeah. Well, everybody's different.
You are who you. I don't doesn't affect how I view myself in any way. Like I am who I am. Like I just find it a curiosity, because you can kind of see when you look at like haplotypes in your ancestry, you can kind of see the migrations and movements of people throughout history, throughout time, history, prehistory, and everything that ultimately led to you, and that's interesting.
It can be.
Because without all of those people, you wouldn't be where you are. Even though weirdly, you're not related to most of your ancestors, which is another weird concept people don't realize. Like, you couldn't exist without all of your ancestors, but you are not related to the vast majority of them. Like once you get back more than 8 or 9 generations, you generally don't have any genes from those people like anymore.
Yeah, it's real small
because
it keeps mixing every time you reproduce during meiosis. It keeps taking 50
chunks of stuff here and there, but you're not getting it's not inherited gene by gene where you just get a smaller and smaller percentage. I mean, it's like eventually you just cycle out, and some of these ancestors you're not related to at all, even though they are your ancestor, but you don't carry any genetic contribution from most of your deep
what
ancestors.
You're saying is hybridizing reptiles is okay then, as long as you do it in many generations. Gotcha.
Right? Like, as long as you get to like 9 generations, and they won't be related to those.
9 generations, you're kind of okay.
Right. It's probably I guess theoretically it would probably be true, wouldn't it? If you got to 9 or 10 generations removed from a hybridization event, and you bred back to one parent species 10 generations, you likely wouldn't have any genetic contribution from the hybrid breeding anymore.
Yeah, it'd be like under 1%, wouldn't it? It'd be like pretty fragmented.
It might get to no percent at some point, because the way it all works. But it's like, but you're probably 2% Neanderthal, and that's 40,000 years ago. That's quite a number of generations. But the only reason why you still have that 2% is because some of those genes were beneficial and were preserved. If it was random stuff, it would have been gone. It's like, but those genes, and it's why you look at the distribution of like archaic DNA and living humans. It's the useful stuff. It's mostly like related to immune system and immune function and stuff. That's the genes that are mostly conserved because they provided a benefit and they're preferentially passed on. Random things would just cycle out by that point.
I got some of the comments are funny. I had to read some of them.
I am the smallest attention span. I cannot look at you guys on my screen and also read the comments off to the side.
It's tough. I only do it for a little bit. I have to try to. You have to.
I see Lisa Farina talking about variable king snakes. I have some of those too, or similar to Amazon. Yeah, they are. That's why I like them, because they all look different. But it'll take me 30 years to figure the Amazon thing out. I don't have time to start with the variable king snakes. So.
Here's the thing, Nick. It's kind of like you're talking about like these neutral mutations, or neutral mutation can exist for a long time. And the funny thing is, I think a lot of people have the notion or the connotation that they think a mutation pops up and it's like new, and it's like, no, I bet piebald ball pythons have existed in Africa for like maybe tens of thousands of years or longer, especially if it's not really impeding their ability to survive. Well, obviously the hex can survive, and same with like a hognose snake. Like, if they're fairly reclusive and fossorial and their pigmentation isn't as large of a precursor for them to be taken out of the wild, mutations can do a lot better within a population.
We talked briefly about Temur pythons. One of those islands, there is a patternless mutation of Temur python that everybody that goes there and finds one thinks they're all convinced themselves it's a new species. It's like it's not a mutation, right. It's just a morph that is a neutral mutation, and they're around on the island. You know how you know it's a morph and not a new species? Because there's normal Temur pythons on the same island. It's a mutation. It's just the same. Sometimes morphs pop out in the wild and get established don't die. Or at least hang on. Patternless mutations are it's the low-hanging fruit of mutations. Certain mutations are
patternless hognose in the wild. I mean, I'm sure there are. We just haven't found. is having fun.
There are.
The Super Arctic is a patternless.
This Super Arctic's not patternless. What the hell are you talking about?
It's got a little top. It's a little top.
The Super Antarctic are you talking about?
I said Super Anaconda. Did I say Arctic?
Oh, Super Conda. You said Super Arctic. You meant to say Super Conda. Yeah, well, yeah, the Super Conda is a patternless. Essentially, just got patterned on the head. Yeah, you're pretty much close enough.
Look at an anaconda and a super anaconda. That
Those
is not
in the wild, no problem.
There's not. It's not going to be the kind of thing that gets you greatly increases the risk of predation. It's not going to help you, but it's probably not going to really hurt you much either. That kind of stuff pops up, and back to Axanthics, why is that one of the most common mutations in everything? Because
yellow and red ain't shit.
Well, it's because there's more than one way. If the odds of a random mutation occurring at any locus is about 10,000 to 1 every time an offspring produces, about 10,000 to 1 chance something's going to mutate at one allele, okay? For anything. To make an albino, an amelanistic albino, there's only one place you can break that genome, and make an amelanistic snake. That's why you can breed an albino king snake to an albino corn snake, and the hybrid babies are compatible albinos.
Well, there's more than one spot, because you have non-allelic albinos all the time.
Not true amelanistics. And once you get into like the lavender, where all this like shades of T positive albino, then you do. But a bog standard T negative, there's only one place. But with what we call Axanthic, there's like 5 different genes you can break, because that process of synthesizing the yellow-red pigment spectrum is a multi-step process. And if you break any one of those steps, you end up with some sort of Axanthic-y thing, which is why you have all these incompatible lines of Anery boas and incompatible lines of Axanthic ball pythons, because there's more than one link in that chain you can break. It ends up with a similar phenotype, but you can break this gene or the one next to it or the one next to that. And any one of those in that chain of events will give you some form of Axanthic. And that's why they're so common. Also, they don't get you eaten. If you're some sort of Axanthic-y looking thing, you're not as likely to get eaten. And albino doesn't last long, typically.
Do you know much about gene duplication?
I'm not an expert. I try my best to not talk out of my ass. So the answer to that is yes, but I'm not. I don't want to get I don't want to get too far out of my comfort zone for fear of saying something stupid and looking like a dummy. So
okay. Well, yeah, I've read about it a little bit. It's interesting. It's not one I was hoping you'd know more about it than me. But I came up with this. I guess we'll talk about it another time.
Well, maybe this will ring a bell in Nick's head. Why don't you say what you got to say?
Well, it comes to the caramel, hypo, and frost genes in the hognose snakes. And, everybody would say the frost is a double visual, but when you breed het frost to het frost, usually you get 25% frost in a lot of cases, and then the rest would be like normal. So obviously this isn't a double recessive. And also, frost being a double visual of hypo and caramel just never made sense, because why would 2 more T-positive-esque animals make an animal that has more melanin on it? So what doesn't help, Nick, is you probably don't know what a frost, caramel, and hypo look like. But I'll tell you exactly what they look like. They're a caramel and a frost look pretty much identical. Frost just has way more melanin than a caramel does. And then you also have the hypo, recessive mutation. And when you're breeding like het hypos, every now and then, sometimes people pop up with a caramel. And when you're breeding like frost stuff, a lot of times randomly you'll produce caramels and hypos. Anyway, they appear very linked. And the reason is you're always outcrossing them, and you can still produce these mutations is because they're linked together. And every time I took caramels and outcrossed them and then made het caramels, they were able to produce all 3 phenotypes. But you'd get caramels more often, a lot of times, and then hypos, and you get frost as well, too. I didn't explain that the best, because a lot of times you'd end up with more caramels than you would hypos and frost, but it varies. Since they're linked, they're not following Mendelian genetics. So then you're getting these kind of obscure results. Anyway, the original het hypos from the wild, the first het hypos were produced from a wild-caught female. And when those visual hypos were raised up, made just het hypos, bred them back to each other, some people produce frost. So there's this other allele there. And so the frost kind of just was always like tied to the hypo stuff because they're closely linked. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because I'm like, well, how can a wild animal have a linked other recessive mutation? is through gene duplication.
I would, without knowing anything about these morphs, I have a sneaky suspicion that it's not any of that, actually.
It's all of that, actually.
You probably have, I think there's a good chance what you actually have is an allelic complex of genes.
They're not allelic. Ha! Go ahead and say more.
What's your evidence for them not being allelic?
Got 2 results of frost to hypo and got normals.
Of frost to hypo and got normals.
Two, they're both homozygous.
Because you can have, because there are examples of this in other species, like retics and other things, where you can have multiple, somewhat similar genes that are distinctly different. They are allelic, but sometimes certain combinations of these alleles will look just like one thing. I.e., if you breed these two genes, it looks like the third thing, and it gets really fucking murky, and you end up with these sort of seemingly unpredictable results, where you don't. It's just really hard to suss out.
But they're predictable, because when you do caramel to caramel, you get 100% caramels. And when you breed frost to frost, you either get all frost or you can sometimes get caramels. And the reason you can get caramels is because caramel is the recessive hypo popping up in frost. And when you breed hypos to hypos, you get only hypos. When you breed hypos to het hypos, you're generally only getting hypos. In some cases, you can get caramels, but you can never get frost from hypos to het hypos, or caramels to hypos, you're never getting frost. Because frost is a hypo... or caramel is a frost hypo. So the one thing is, like, the results are wonky, but they'd be links. They're not allelic, because if you take a hypo and you breed a frost, you can sometimes get normals. It's like, how do you explain 2 homozygous that are allelic making a normal?
They're not because you're operating the presumption that they're homozygous.
They're homozygous for sure. This is a recessive. These are. So you're saying that they're not homozygous? Like, I have a visual hypo, and the thing is, these hypos look like a T positive.
I think that
and a frost is really crazy looking. And when you
there's a lot of times in the hobby, people initially believe a certain thing about how things are inherited, and they never really reassess that. And sometimes it might be some things are not quite as recessive as we think. Some things are not always what we initially thought they were. I could give you a dozen examples. You can think of a bunch of examples where sometimes it's good to go back to the drawing board and reassess that previous assumptions, because we tend to make our hypothesis based on our presumed assumptions about going in, and if those foundational assumptions are incomplete or even wrong, then everything we theorize later is thrown off. And it might be one where you go back, look at the initial albino reticulated pythons. The most unlikely thing in the world happened. The initial albino was a lavender albino, a wild-caught lavender albino. But what had happened when it got bred back to its heterozygous offspring, and its heterozygous offspring got bred together, 3 different types of albinos popped out. Purple albinos, T-negative albinos, and lavender albinos. 3 totally different looking albinos from one original lavender albino. What the fuck? What had happened was the original lavender albino was a heteroallelic homozygote. A het for purple and a het for T-negative, which were compatible, as unlikely as that was, in the wild, ran into each other, produced the intermediate form, and it took years for people to... I figured out before most people, but it's so unlikely, but they just couldn't believe, like, why are we getting 3 different types of albino out of this one albino? It's like, because their foundational assumption was actually not really correct, and thus all the hypothesizing for years was wrong. Eventually, you figured out it might be worth going back in. Another thing, like, I'm not a huge fan of genetic testing for morphs.
Sure, I know that, yeah.
Even though the guys that started that are friends of mine, I've known them for years, I think ultimately it's bad for business in the longer term, because it just accelerates price drops. It's like the ultimate cheat code. So this market cycle can accelerate and plummet faster, like as if we needed that to happen. But that would be one where that technology, and like somebody like Ben Morrill and Sean could figure that out and literally just map those genes out and tell you exactly what's going on. That is a really good to answer that that's a mystery that could completely be solved. By those guys. And it might even be interesting enough for him to do it.
You're saying the albino retic, though, the original one, it was an allelic form of T-neg and the lavender albino.
Yeah, a wild-caught heteroallelic homozygous animal, as weird and unlikely as that is. And there's 2 examples of that. There's a ball python example of that happening, too. The original platinum that Ralph Davis had 1 million years ago was a heteroallelic homozygous animal. And it took him, I think he probably figured it, I figured it out and said it on his own forum, and then everybody shot me down like I was an idiot. I was right. But I think the mystery of it sold better than the boring, rather mundane truth of it. So I think he kept the mystery going a bit longer than was necessary for sales. But weird stuff like that happens. We have two different mutations of the same locus out of the wild. That's bizarre.
Right. I get
and
what you're
unlikely.
saying. But the thing is, like, we don't know what the dad looked like for the wild hog, but it's a wild normal female hoggos, and it produced 3 hypos. So 2 heteros, or, it was like 17 eggs, he says. It's actually a big clutch for a wild female. It's possible a homozygous bred it, but most likely another heterozygous bred it. So a heterozygous to another heterozygous, there couldn't be a heterozygous allele happening. And then also, they had one phenotype, bred it, made hets, bred those hets back to each other. So right there, you could prove it's not allelic there.
What if the allelic genes was recessive and one of them was recessive and one was incomplete dominant?
They're all recessive though. They're all recessive. Like I worked with hypos, I worked with frost, I worked with caramels. You gotta remember, you're saying I should look at it from the start.
I think
here's the thing.
As a general rule, as a general policy, if nothing makes any sense after years and years of banging your head trying to figure it out, nothing you said makes any sense. Because nothing you said follows any sort of rules, and everything operates by a set of rules. We don't necessarily understand the rules. We don't necessarily know what it is, but there are rules. And if nothing makes sense after years and years and years, the first thing you should do is like go back to square one and reassess, go back to the beginning and really try to drill down, are these foundational assumptions
You gotta
true?
What I was talking about, this is what initially everybody said, that they were a double, like frost is a double homozygous, or, double homozygous. And that there's a combination of caramel and hypo, and that was the presumed thing. I'm not going off of other people's like ideas or whatever. I was like, this doesn't make sense, and I started foundationally from the origin and went by with results. Cannot be allelic. It's 100% not allelic.
If they are
not double visual.
If they are 2 separate genes, completely separate genes that are not allelic, you should be able to completely separate them, isolate them, and make whole clutches of each one independent without ever making the other one. It might be a pain in the ass.
But a lot of times you can't because they're linked. They're very close proximity. And the reason I think that happened was because the hypo or frost, whichever one existed first in the wild, very, very long time ago, gene duplication took course at some point. It's basically, it's another mutation occurring. And with gene duplication, when it happens, it usually creates linking because the gene duplication, that allele usually sits and resides instantly, like very close in proximity. So then a lot of times they're inherited together. So that's why
additional copies of the same gene.
It's exactly. So that's why it almost kind of looks allelic too, because they're the same mutation but in different spots. So sometimes they kind of even make each other look even by themselves, like frost can sometimes look like a caramel, and then sometimes a hypo can almost look like a caramel too. But if I showed you all of it, you would probably have to agree with me. I have an Excel sheet with over 40 pairings. But the thing is, if you breed that's not incomplete dominant, it's 100% recessive. Imagine this works like albino or like recessive, okay? These are like T-pods. Imagine it like albino. And I took or somebody else, where you have a couple different pairings. I'm doing the pairings myself too. Hypos to frost, and we're able to get normals from them, half normals. Homozygous to homozygous. And they keep showing up together. No matter, I could take frost, and I keep breeding het frost to het frost. I usually only get frost, but every now and then I'll get caramels and hypos.
Well, the qualifier is you're saying presumed hetero. You're basing their presumption they're homozygous based on their phenotype. And what if that's not true? What if that foundational assumption, that's homozygous because the way it looks, is not in fact correct?
Yeah,
thus,
that'd be like
then
saying,
you can
like,
explain
you had a
these
lavender
things.
albino and albino retic, and you're like, well, you're only presuming they're homozygous because you're visually looking at them. That's how these are not like.
Amelanism is so dramatic. These are
dramatic.
Stop.
These are about as dramatic. You'd have to be like Stevie Wonder could tell the difference between a fucking hypo and a frosted caramel hog.
In every case that I've ever seen in any species, things like albinism is always so cut and dry, but hypomelanism isn't the complete failure to do a thing. It's like doing less of a thing. You're going to make less pigment. And when you're stopping a process, the process of making that pigment has started, but you're stopping it before the end point. those mutations that stop a process midstream always end up with greater variability. It's why the amount of white on a pied, any pied, the white is always really variable, because you're stopping the process of distributing pigment midstream. At some point, you're flipping the switch off in the middle somewhere, and you end up with a wide variety. Hypomelanism is always far more variable. There's never really variation in albinism, but hypomelanism is always variable in expression. I don't know what's going on with your hog nose, but I'm saying you should get a hold of Ben. This might be interesting enough to be. Is it what you're saying is biologically possible? It would be the only known case of that, but just because it's not been documented to occur doesn't mean it isn't what's happening. But I'm just saying, in general, if nothing makes sense, go back to square one.
Here's the thing:
retrace your steps. What's going on?
Yeah, well, that's what I did.
Is this really homozygous?
Double homozygous made no sense. Caramel being a double homozygous is true. That one does make sense. Caramel's a true double homozygous. And the frost and hypo alleles are linked together. That's why when you could have hypos, bred to hypos from people's collection, that they only produce hypos, you breed it to a caramel, you get visuals. But if you take a hypo to a frost, you can actually get normals. But if you breed a caramel to a hypo, nobody's done that one that I can really think of yet, but you'll never get normals. I can already tell you that one, because the caramel is a hypo frost.
So we probably spent too much time on these two hognose morphs, but it's like
no.
It doesn't make sense. Stow back.
I mean, it makes sense. The one I put together makes sense. I mean, them being allelic doesn't make sense, because you could breed a homozygous and get a normal. That's like impossible.
No, but you're
basing
homozygous.
You're basing homozygous. These homozygous are pretty impactful.
You're talking about something in any whatever is going on is by definition very unusual. Agreed? Whatever is going on is very unusual. Is that fair to say? It's a very unusual. It's weird and unusual and difficult.
It's atypical. Yes. Ben Morell's explained. I guess there's certain ball pythons that have similar modes of it. Like
these sort of things, I'm saying, like
linked alleles and ball pythons. I think right stripe and something else is linked.
If it can't be explained, then we shouldn't make grand assumptions. We're making assumptions.
It can be explained.
That's what this is.
I'm trying to explain it to you, but I just didn't explain it that good. So you didn't understand it completely.
You explained a couple of hypotheses.
I explained it pretty good. I mean, I have the results.
But you have to fit all those results to a hypothesis that always works 100% of the time, and that's where nothing seems to ever work 100% of the time.
It does well. It doesn't work 100% of the time because, you don't know the allele format with the linkage, because sometimes the linkage is broke and sometimes it's not, and you don't know what the animal is until you breed it. So then at that point, because if you breed
a muddled mess.
Well, it's because it doesn't follow Mendelian genetics, because you got two linked to recessive alleles. So it's not going to give you like a perfect Punnett square outcome like you want. But once you have the parents pinned, if they're, let's say, where the linked allele is, if there's the frost allele is there on a het, or just a normal wild type allele is there, once you breed it and you know that, then you can predict the outcome. But some of these animals, you don't know what they're het for, because generally you do. Usually they're always linked together, but sometimes with genetic recombination, they're not. The allele is swapped out for a wild type, and you don't know when that happens during meiosis. You don't know. So until you breed them, that's when you know, and that's why it looks like a muddled mess, because everybody's like confused by it. Everybody'd always say caramels and hypos and frost doesn't follow the rules. I started asking people, then more people got interested in looking into it. As the more I kind of started poking around, even though I wasn't probably going to get really good feedback for what I was looking for, which I really did not, because I always knew frost was in a double visual based on results, and I also know they're not allelic based on results, and the only thing that could make sense was that they're linked together. I'm like, well, how can you get a linked gene from the wild? And then I discovered gene duplication, and so I was like, that makes sense, especially if a gene exists so long that it is possible for gene duplication to hit, a mutation, duplicate it, and put it in close proximity together. That's why they can sometimes look similar, and that's why you, when you breed them, you get these what looks like funky results, but they're actually just two linked recessive mutations. They were once the same, but they became two.
For the record, everything always follows the rules. There is no example.
They said it.
The problem, the disconnect is.
I didn't say that shit. I'm saying
you said that other people. I know. That's what I'm saying. Everything follows the rules. It's just that our understanding of the rules is oftentimes incomplete. Our understanding of what's going on is incomplete. It's following the rules. We don't necessarily completely understand the rules or what's actually happening. It's our own ignorance of these processes and what's going on is what it creates the appearance of things not following the rules because it doesn't conform to. We want to apply everything to the most simple form. Basic rules are easy for everybody to understand, and sometimes things are more complicated than that. Sometimes there are. I have to deal with this with my own stuff.
Like that last explanation is pretty simple. You know, it's mutation that interferes with protein pathways that, you know, produce black pigment. Gene duplication occurred, made a copy of it, put it in close proximity, which that almost happens with gene duplication, where you get a linked allele then at that point. Those get inherited together all the time. So the hets, they're always pretty much het hypo and het frost. But every now and then, one can swap out.
It doesn't. Except for the once in a while when it doesn't.
Yes, exactly. Because that's the thing. You don't want to, sometimes it does occur. But you're saying, that'd be like saying like banana ball pythons. Like, oh, since you can't predict how often they'll throw a male or female, they're like, well, now that your hypothesis doesn't work. Because you can get it to a percentage. So that's what we'd have to find out is that rough percentage of that occurrence. And then that would make Nick happy. Get Ben Moore on the phone right now, Dave. Call him up, wake him up. Get him on the fucking podcast.
Wake Ben up.
Call Ben right now, please.
I've known Ben since the late 90s. He's a good dude.
You call Ben then. He's got him on speed dial.
I could call him, but
he's a good guy.
I like Ben. He's nice. Even when I say something like I'm like off the cuff, he's a very nice guy.
He's a really nice guy. I've known him for a very long time.
We'll bring him in for a cameo next time, but
that'd be really useful. I mean, because like
the 4 beers.
We could talk like you have an actual geneticist. Like he'd probably have some pretty good insights. Obviously, at a higher level beyond.
Me on everything. Like he's like, yeah, Jeff's right on the Axanthic. It's like the hypo and frost. It's like gene duplication happened. Yeah, he looks like I'm like, whoa.
Well, that's
wow. I think that's going to happen.
I'm not saying you're wrong. That's the thing. I was like, I'm saying like I'm not saying that. I'm saying like I need a lot of evidence to be convinced of a thing. That doesn't mean I'm saying you're wrong.
Gotcha.
I'm saying like the mountain of evidence that needed to prove something is pretty high, but that doesn't mean I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not arguing. I don't know enough about this situation to offer an opinion one way or the other.
What if I have a?
I'm speaking in generalities.
I have an Excel sheet with 46 pairings. Is that good?
I mean, the larger your body of data, the better your conclusions are going to be. The more every clutch you add to that, it just gets more and more. You get closer and closer to being certain. I also have a very smart guy from Taiwan, and this guy is very smart. He's intelligent, and he did the math and on what I presented, and he said I was right. The funny thing is, I didn't understand everything he was saying though about my stuff because he broke it down and he goes, why is right, and I was like, but I didn't really. His stuff was beyond what I was actually already doing. I mean, short of really sequencing these genes and really getting into that level, it's all just going to be a hypothesis. And does all of your data fit the hypothesis? And is this likely, or is it not? It's probably be difficult. But it's not unknowable. But it might be difficult. Although they seem to be getting better and better and faster at figuring these things out. So
I'm sorry, Jeff. Have you ever talked to Ben about any of this?
Yeah, he's one of those guys. Well, I don't know, but he said it sounds like he didn't want to say yes or no. He said that kind of I don't want to put words in his mouth. He didn't say no or yes. He said he wanted to see more. I sent him my Excel with the majority. Now I have more, and he didn't respond. And I wrote him a paper. I told him I was like. Don't pay attention to. I wrote up this one thing, and then I started adding. Then I deleted some of it, and I just sent it to him. I was like, "Fuck it." I was like, "Yeah, if this was a genetics test, or a thesis from somebody, or they're doing a PhD, I'm sure you'd give me an F or a D on it, because the way I explained it. But the results and everything, it's I don't know. He just kind of smiled when I said that. I was like, yeah, I'd probably get a D on the paper. I was like, it's not real. I should have taken more time. Maybe I'll take some more time and write it out. But I was going to do a video on it presenting it. I mean, I'm pretty certain it's I have found it can't be anything else. Can't be anything else. And then the one thing that I could not figure out, and until I told it today, I've told a couple other people only, it's well, how can a gene, single recessive mutation from the gene, have an other allele attached to it that never seems to kick off of it? And how can it have a linked allele? How could that happen and occur in the wild? How could there be 2 linked recessives? And I discovered gene duplication. And gene duplication occurs randomly, and it can happen to even a mutation allele, and then duplicates it, and it'll put it in close proximity, and it'll become linked. Gene duplication, linkage is usually almost the result of it. And so like that would make perfect sense. It completely sums it up. And gene duplication is rare, but if a gene existed, like we talked about, can exist in the wild for tens of thousands of years, it's not unlikely for that to occur sometimes. And that's why it's happened in ball pythons too. The red stripe is linked. I forget, Ben had a video on it with linkage with ball python. There's some linked genes there too. It's like, how does a mutation in the wild become linked to another one? Gene duplication.
Given enough time, even the most unlikely things do happen. It's
unlikely, but over tens of thousands of years,
all of this stuff is unlikely. Given enough time, even the most unlikely thing does play out. And the reality is that, short of having Ben or somebody really dive deep on it, all you're going to ever have is a well-established hypothesis that fits all the available data, and you'd be pretty confident that that's what it is. Yes. But absolute certainty becomes almost impossible. I have
like
right behind me right now,
or incomplete dominant.
That is done and over.
It is.
You don't need. All you need is binocular vision to be able to see that. But I mean, I've got a similar situation with some Brettles pythons behind me. I have hypomelanistic Brettles pythons. And I can confidently tell you that after 15 years of test breeding them and doing things like raising entire clutches up for 7 years and tracking color progression of outcross ones, it's not a single gene. I've got it pretty well sussed out what's going on. Also, the stonewash, which is just
poly.
It is, but it's not. Yes and no. It is, but
you probably one main allele.
Everything,
some contributing alleles too.
Every phenotype is polygenic because all the other genes that code for color and pattern get a say get a weigh in. With the Brettles python hypo, it looks like it's about 4 alleles. They're all incomplete. Pigment distribution hypomelanism is almost always incomplete dominant, and pigment synthesis hypomelanism is almost always recessive. So that's why, like your Honduran milk snake hypo, which looks like a T-positive albino, because it's kind of what it is. Yeah, it's because it is. It's like
they line bred it to be like that, though. That's insane. They actually selectively line bred a T-pos.
It's the type of mutation that blocks the synthesis of that pigment, so you make diluted black pigment, is recessive. We call some of that. We used to call hypomelanism. Now it's more fashionable to call those different types of T-positive because that's the name that sells better. You used to call it hypo. And the other type is a pigment distribution hypo, that you can make the black pigment, but it boogers up the amount of pigment that goes out. It blocks the distribution of it. That type's always incomplete dominant. That's what you see in coastal carpet pythons, Brettles pythons, boa constrictor hypos. They can make black pigment, they just don't have as much of it. It blocks the distribution of it. That's why those are different things. With the Brettles python, it appears that there is like 3 or about 4 genes that combine to make the hypo, but one gene does half of the job. One gene silences the first wave of pigment distributions present at hatching. Animal hatches out hypo, even with a single copy of it. The other genes collectively suppress the second wave that comes in when they get to subadult size, and they get that second round of black pigment, and it suppresses that. The combination of all of that means an animal starts with very little black and ends up as an adult with very little black. But they can be separated. The stonewash also makes them a lot lighter, but it's basically a piebald gene. It's a permanently low white piebald gene where the piebald areas... Yeah. I chose not to call them piebald because I didn't want to explain to people why it was a piebald. The ventral surface is completely pied. It's all white and cream colored all the way down. The pattern is all disrupted and staticky where the white areas touch, just like any pied, but it's always only the ventral surface, and it boogers up the neck pattern.
Call it a pied belly.
It is. I just didn't want to have to explain to people forever that it was a pied. It is a pied.
Yeah.
I think that, but you get you get a reaction when you make hypos that are heterozygous for stonewash. I think the stonewashed allele is at the same locus as one of the hypo alleles that contributes to that. So when you make a hypo that is het for stonewash, you see a partial expression of the piebald ventrals in the first 25% of the ventrals. You get white, but only the first little bit. So it's probably allelic. A pied mutation is probably allelic with one of the constituent genes that contributes to making a hypo. This is the same sort of thing where it gets really difficult to suss that out. It took me 15 years of test breeding, holding whole clutches back, and it just eventually... But I could still be wrong. All the evidence suggests this, but it's one of you're dealing with that sort of thing where it's a mess, and all you can do is like keep gathering enough data, and eventually you come up with a hypothesis. You can't falsify your hypothesis. You can't. No one can come up with a better idea. It explains every instance in every case. This seems to be the thing, and then you probably get us in with that. And maybe you're already there, but these are unusual situations.
Now,
but they do occasionally pop up.
If you breed a stonewash to a full hypo, do they all come out like that with varying degrees, like a little bit of tide tattering? They all?
Yes.
Interesting. So,
but what will happen is like it will be. It's not even visible until the animal's like 2 years old because the ventral surface. Fuck. Yeah. Well, the ventrals are kind of almost white on a hatchling.
Okay.
And as they get older and their color comes in, they get that second round of they get redder and redder. Well, that yellow-red pigment comes in. The ventral surface turns kind of a buttery color. And what happens is when the ventral surface starts to turn kind of that buttery color, some of them don't. The ones that had so much, it just stays bright white. So but you can't see it as babies. When they're a yearling, if you put them under a black light, you can see it because the white scales will fluoresce a little bit. It helps you see it a little earlier. But they need to go through color change before you can see it.
It's pretty obscure. And then when they get older, how obvious is it once they're an adult? Is it super
obvious? Super obvious. Yeah, it's super
Does it ever
obvious.
look mottled at all, like the edges, or the edges pretty clean?
The whole ventral scale, the entire ventral scale will be either pied white or kind of a buttery color. And it's just random. You'll be like 3 cream ones, 2 white ones, 1 cream one, 9 white ones, and just kind of random. On a homozygous stonewash, it's that pie goes all the way down to the tail. The whole belly. On the hets, if they're also hypomelanistic, it's just like the first 25%.
It almost sounds like an Axanthic belly.
Yeah, it's like this, but it's these. The easiest way, the most likely explanation is that the stonewash is probably at the same locus as one of these hypoalleles, and thus, the animal has one copy of the hypoallele and one stonewash copy at that same locus. It has no normally functioning copy of that gene at that locus at all. And so you end up with this sort of, it's the lack of any normal copy that gives you those white scales in that limited area.
I was reading
Probably.
I was reading about the, morphological differences in like wild types. And the one thing is they're talking about geneticists, and they said they used to actually refer to like all wild type alleles that kind of interact with each other as incomplete dominant to one another. And then they said they later kind of like discovered that's actually not exactly true. It's actually more they're allelic to one another, which is interesting because you could kind of see that misunderstanding because incomplete dominance has an epistatic kind of like interaction where you can make like this blend and obscured like difference. But then they later found, and it makes more sense, that they're actually allelic to one another, and certain ones can override or overpower, and then you have this allelic interaction that makes up this variable constructive organism, like it's everything's allelic.
Any snake or any animal or a human or whatever at any locus in that population, there's multiple different versions of that different alleles at that locus that are all what you consider normal, but they're not exactly the same. They're all slightly different. Some might be a little lighter, some might be a little darker. Some do their job really good. Some are kind of shitty at doing their job. Some don't even work at all. Like some have a loss of function, some have a gain of function. Most of them probably get along just fine, but they're different versions. So it's like this is why not all snakes look exact. Otherwise, without that, they'd all look the same, wouldn't they?
They'd be boring.
This variation between two normal individuals is different combinations of normal wild type alleles. There's not just there isn't a wild type allele at every locus. There's a bunch of them, and once in a while a mutant one that is outside of that normal range.
I got a random question. So, speckled rattlesnakes, how do those color phases work in the wild? Do you have any idea? I understand they adapt to their surroundings, but has there any been research on that gene? Are that species like that?
What? I'm sorry, I didn't catch what species you're talking about.
Speckled rattlesnakes, just all the different color phases you can get across the region, everything pretty much developing to what the scenery is. Any idea?
I don't. So I don't. Again, just don't want to get too far out of my wheelhouse and talk out of my ass about something I don't know a lot about. I'd be quite surprised. These variations, they're just mutations that occur in local populations that just change things. It's like it's not indicative of any major genome-wide changes, but that's what it is. It's like those populations that have adapted to this color of this rocky outcrop, they're not making babies that are totally different colors. All their babies look like them because that's where they live. And these ones over here might look different because they're living in a different kind of rock. There are genetic reasons why this happens, but it's not indicative of any real, it's very surface level stuff. A couple of genes.
Well, one thing is, Nick, some species might be more adaptive. Like, they might be naturally more likely to throw variable patterns and colors. And then those ones' survivability is a little better. And then it makes up that. So especially when you see them there, because there's so many different locales of speckled rattlers. I don't know much about them either, but I know there's a ton. There's the blue ones, there's the white ones, and the blue ones are kind of just like the white ones, a little bluish gray to them. You got these reddish ones, and I actually found one in the wild. And then we found, and Crystal said it wasn't very attractive, but there's other ones around there that were more red. So you got these more grayish red ones, you got these pink ones, and so really what it is, like the white one is just missing a lot of that color base, and then the ones that get added, like some melanin, and with their iridophores can be more of like a bluish look. Then you get the reddish ones around the red rocks. So I think it's just wild type polygenics, and they're highly variable and adaptive.
That's probably fair to say. There is no white pigment, so that's just well, no, that is. I mean, sometimes we tend to oversimplify complicated processes, but that's true.
Oh, we got Ben's in the chat.
Ben's awake and in the chat.
He says just right about everything. He's not in the chat.
He's not in the chat. No.
Damn. I'm gonna send him a link to the podcast and get him in here if he's in the chat.
I see somebody. I've struck a nerve with a Randall Sheldon who says AI exists. Prove you can visually identify head Axanthic heads. Until then, we should assume it's a true recessive. It's like, dude, if you're putting all your science in an AI search engine, I got news for you about that. You might want to reconsider that one.
Well, AI can sometimes be good. I mean, here's the thing. I think it's really good to give you a baseline of information and to research it further or to get stuff quickly. Because sometimes doing search engines, it can be tough to find what you're looking for. Sometimes AI makes it easier to find these things, and sometimes AI can pull from some pretty good papers. Because sometimes
it doesn't.
Sometimes I found that. You gotta be careful using it.
If you asked AI if head Axanthics are visual, it's going to say no, because a true Axanthic wouldn't be that. But what we're calling Axanthic is not even Axanthic, it's hypoxanthic, and that's a different thing. If you had heads that were truly Axanthic, it would be that. So AI would be right, but it would be a misleading answer because that's not the type of mutation we're even talking about.
The Axanthic/Anerythristic mutations we're talking about, though, they're referred to as being A without,
but that's obviously not true.
Well, we all kind of know that. We just kind of go along with it. It's that's a pretty good explanation. It sounds good. It's kind of like we're talking about the dinosaurs you're saying, where they have them reversed. We're in too deep. We got to keep it now.
So stuck that you're not.
Codominance, we almost got
rid of that. We can get rid of that one.
Yeah, 20 years ago, everybody called everything codominant. Now you barely got anybody doing it. When I hear people do that, it's rare.
Try to convince the corn snake people there's no such thing as an anery, and you're never going to get there. You'll be right, but you're never going to get there. You're just you got to pick your battles with some of this stuff.
It is an
You're not going to get
right. It's a type. Basically, that's what the mutation is called. Is it exactly that? No.
It's incomplete. It's hypoxanthism. It's the same thing. We just call it one thing in some species as a different thing in other species, and it's wrong in both of those things because it's neither of those things in either of those groups.
It's just more right in Axanthic, and that's one thing people I posted every now and then how. The chromatophores that are responsible for red and yellow pigment cells are the same. So technically, anything that they just call an animal that mutates or more naturally red, like a corn snake, they call it anerythristic. Like Kenyan samboa, says you got more orange red, and then the carotenoids that produce red. I said if you were astaxanthin, it's
I'm not even gonna try.
Carotenoid. But they're actually derived from the same thing. They're just certain ones are more a heavier tone towards red, and the other ones deviate more yellow. But an Axanthic and anerythristic, for that long one, we could agree on this one, Nick. Axanthic and anerythristic, as far as definitionally, they're the same thing.
The same thing.
The same thing.
The mutation that we call those two things, it's one phenomenon we're seeing. It's just a spectrum of pigment that starts yellow and ends at red. It's basically the easiest way to view it, I guess.
That's exactly the way to view it. It's the same thing, but we just call it that based on the spectrum if it's deviating more towards yellow or more towards red.
I think the last time I ever posted in a boa constrictor group, I let everybody know there was no such thing as an Anery boa because they don't really have real red pigment anyway. And you'd have thought the world had come off its axis. The amount of people, they came out with their pitchforks and torches for me and ran me out of the group. I'm like, all right, see ya. I'm like, all right, have fun with your Anerys, I guess.
And you're banned from boas forever because you're like,
no, I wasn't banned. I just like
made it a boa.
No, I just showed myself to the door and never posted there again. I generally like certain communities and then the hobby and subsets. They're not open to information. It's like, nope, I have my dogma that I've told myself forever, and even if it's demonstrably false, I'm just gonna keep going with that. I'm like, well, I'm not. I don't belong here. I left all the chondro groups. I left the boa constrictor groups. I used to be in a lot more stuff, but it's like I'm just okay.
Get in the ball python
group.
Have
at it, guys. No,
Get in the ball python group.
I left all those too for the same reasons. It's just kind of like.
This one will be good though, Nick. Especially for the fun and rage bait. Go into the biggest ball python group. Post some of your pythons and like do the actually general pythons. So you can do your carpet pythons and put Axanthic and God doesn't exist, and just post.
Assertions require evidence. If you're gonna make a claim,
okay, about
anything, you got to be able to put up or shut up. Give me the evidence. If you expect me to believe what you're claiming, you need to have evidence for that. And if you don't have evidence for that, then I can be convinced of anything if you show me enough evidence. I need the evidence, and that should be how we all operate, shouldn't it? We should be making decisions
I think so.
Based on evidence, not on wishful thinking, not on dogma, not on what we want something to be, but what does the evidence suggest is going on? And that's how I operate, and that's what will convince me. The only thing that's going to convince me that I'm wrong is more evidence. And I've been wrong about a bunch of stuff over these many years. I've been doing this for over 30 years. And I could give you a long list of things I was wrong about, assumptions I made. But what happened over time? Mainly a lot more DNA work and phylogenetic relationships, things we thought were one thing based on the evidence we had at a certain time. When you get more evidence, turns out it was something else, or our understanding was incomplete based on incomplete information. When you have more evidence, you can draw better conclusions. And what we believe now might also later be deemed incomplete with even more evidence. That's how science works, and that's how. We can't just have sacred cows. We're never. I believe this before. I'm never changing. It's like we should always be open to new information and change our view. If we learn more, that's how we progress.
Yeah, agreed. So, because sometimes it's nice if you're like you don't want to be wrong all the time because then you kind of feel bad about yourself. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to be a little wrong. Like, okay, you discover, learn new things. Now
the importance is to be willing to accept that we've learned more and move on, and that should be this never-ending march towards a more complete understanding of whatever the thing we're looking at is.
And it's a very good way to look at it. We got the fat guy reptile says, "What's on your mind, Dave?" He wants to know what's on your mind after all of this.
Well, I've lost all train of thought, to be honest with you. I've tried. Every once in a while I've had something, but I can't get it there, guys.
Just keep notes. Let's do this.
I can take
wrote
all
down
the
gene duplication.
I love
I wrote.
Oh my god!
I got some numbers.
A couple hours before we went live, Dave sends me here's what we're going to talk about. We're nowhere near any of that at all. We're miles away. I knew that would come up because that's just us intellectually sparring around two. But
how about this? Let's dumb it down a little bit. Hey Nick, how do you feel about Monsters of God?
I think I've known that was coming for a decade. I am not surprised at all. I have a pretty dim view of most of those people for obvious reasons, as does any other old-timer that has a long memory. I think anybody that is celebrating this thinks it's going to be a good thing or thinks it's just going to be entertainment is woefully fucking naive. And obviously has no grasp of the history of this hobby or how any of this plays out. It's like, this guy makes these animal industry smear documentaries that every single time, it's like there's a bunch of legislation that causes a massive amount of problems for that community. And I got a spoiler alert for anybody who thinks this is going to be is going to turn out okay. It's like, that legislation wasn't a side effect. It was the fucking point. It was the goal. Why do you think this is any different? That was the whole point. One shitty documentary about a bunch of fucking weirdos basically ends big cat ownership in the United States. And good luck getting a chimpanzee now. That's what do you think? What do you think's? Jesus, the trailer makes it look like this, it's 1980s and it's Miami Vice. A bunch of automatic weapons and like they're drug dealers. Like they're trying to. It is intentionally meant to smear and slander our industry. It is not meant to. It is meant to portray in the most seedy, worst possible way, with all the usual suspects who will do anything to get their face in front of a camera because that's who these people are.
They like attention.
They don't give a shit about the fallout and never did. It's always been about them. You should not be surprised at all. Any of us old timers have been around for a long time are not surprised at all. Yeah, shocker. Who's on the frickin' poster? Yeah, surprise, surprise. No surprise whatsoever. None. It's gonna go down exactly like you think it is.
That doesn't sound very good.
It's big. It isn't
what
good.
About another
That's why we all need to remember. We still have US ARC. We need probably a good time to up your membership on that because we're gonna fucking need it.
Your stuff because you guys are gonna. Yeah, they're about to make Phil work overtime.
Yeah, they are.
Some assholes. Well,
because that's the point of it.
The people that want to push this legislation, they're gonna use this as a weapon because they're gonna like, oh, look at what they did. But the funny thing is, like, yeah, look at the picture. It's like this bad stuff happened in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And the funny thing is, legislation formed around people like that. The reason we have a lot of legislation is for people like that. So this stuff has already kind of taken place.
They're not going to stop.
That were involved in this are like almost dead. They're like 79, like 8 years old.
And they don't care what happens to the hobby. They care about their 15 minutes of shame. It's like, but they're not going to stop there. They got that dumbass Tyler Nolan guy right there in the trailer. It's like, hey, there's still dumbasses doing irresponsible shit even now. Because he's got to get his fucking face out there too, right? Like, they're not going to stop. The whole point of this is to make us look bad and to foster legislation to make our lives difficult. That is the point, and it will work.
Yeah, he looks pretty good for the documentary. He's missing like a thumb.
I am shocked at the number of herpers who are so blissfully ignorant of the reason why this exists and the effects and the desired outcome of the people that made it, why they made it, what it's going to try to do, and what it's going to do. And they're just, oh, I don't think it's going to be that bad. Really? Have you been paying any attention at all? You're clearly new to the hobby. It's like this. It's astounding to me. It's like that they're.
So what aspect?
So no, not looking forward to it. What?
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I will not be watching it.
So I assumed it would hurt more the venomous side of the community over the whole community.
Well, they're the lowest hanging fruit of all.
And that's why I assumed if there was anybody that would get affected, they are the easy target.
Yeah.
So do you believe in some regulation or no regulation when it comes to anything like this?
I don't want. No, because when you give an inch, they take a mile, don't they? Once you start down that road, it never ends. Once you make a list, the list only gets longer, doesn't it? It never gets shorter again. Once you start chipping away, you just lose and lose and lose. You start that process. The best thing is to not start down that road. However, I think like you could. This hobby needs to regulate itself and do a better job of policing itself, and it's never going to happen. If you look at like another hobby, another animal-related hobby that faced legislative problems and got on its shit together, falconry, which is not a big hobby, let's face it, but falconers. Like, do you know how hard it is to be a falconer now? They faced all sorts of potential legislation problems and all kind of stuff, and they got their shit together and they policed themselves. You didn't just get a falcon. You gotta start with one bird. It's like there's a whole thing you gotta go through. But it wasn't because of legislation. They just organized themselves. So there was no reason to pass legislation. We need to do a better job of it is entirely too easy to get a king cobra shipped to you. It is far too easy. It is. And unfortunately, and we all know this in the hobby, and there'll be a couple people in the comments that are going to argue this with me, but the other 99.9% of us know this is true. The person that wants a king cobra the most is probably the last jackass you should let get one. It's true. We all know it's true. It's why you're laughing. You know it's true. The person that wants to have a king cobra the most, the guy that wants it the most, probably shouldn't have it. Probably, more than likely, is not the person you should let have that. It's, the person that wants
because they eat other snakes. So
real people that have the people that have. The people that can be trusted and are responsible enough to have a bunch of venomous stuff are not the people making dumbass YouTube videos, are they? They're those guys you hardly would know have any of that stuff because they keep a low profile and they know what they're doing. The guys that are having this stuff for shock value and YouTube clicks, that's the last person you should allow have it. That's the last person.
I've brought this up before, but in the early days of UFSARC, one of the early meetings I went to, they were like, well, we're going to have to give up the berms to keep everything else. Do you think that's the way this documentary might look? The venomous community looks so bad, the community might
I think once you start a blacklist, that list will get added to. Once you have a law in the books that makes certain snakes illegal, the legislative hurdle to adding more snakes to that list is nothing. There's a bit of a hurdle to get the list started in legal framework. Adding to that, you're just amending a law. You're not passing a new law. It is much easier to add to a blacklist that already exists than to start one in the first place.
What if we
fight them tooth and nail from the fucking beginning? You might not win every battle, but you should fight every battle.
Well, statistically, like a sacrificial lamb, almost like a Jesus. Some person we're going to pin all of this on, and it's this one person's fault, and like that guy.
I don't want to see even the venomous people lose their hobby. I think it's probably a little too easy to get venomous snakes in a lot of places, and it makes it too easy. It is frankly too easy for dumbasses who have no business having a cobra to get a cobra. It should probably be harder, but I don't want to see a legislative or legal framework where it makes it impossible for responsible keepers to pursue the things that they are passionate about. I think that's bad. I think it's probably a little too easy in certain circumstances for people to have some things that are, but I don't want to see that outlawed. I don't want to see that to be an impossible standard for people.
Yeah.
Because there are people.
I know what you mean, but
I know venomous keepers who are responsible, who don't act like fools,
there's a lot,
who don't free handle on YouTube and don't act like idiots. And I would hate to see them lose their passion in life because of the acts of some dumbasses who just want YouTube fame, which is what will end up happening. It's the same thing with the big snake people. It's like there are a lot of people who probably shouldn't have big retics. We all know this is true. The retic people know this is true. This is not a secret. But I'd hate this. But I also know people that do great with their retics and are responsible big snake keepers. I don't want to see them lose their passion life because they act as some dumbass who has no business with an 18-foot snake. Like I don't profess to have the definitive answer to these problems, but I don't want to see anybody. It's no different than like gun legislation. I'm not a gun person. I don't want guns in my fucking house. But I'm not here to cast judgment on someone who's into guns, who's a gun hobbyist. There are people that shouldn't have a bunch of guns, clearly. But there are also people, a lot more of those people, who are perfectly reasonable, rational people. And I don't want to take, it's not what I'm into, but I don't want to take their thing away from them if they're playing by the rules and are responsible. So you got to find the right balance with this stuff. Like I don't want to ban anything. I don't want anybody to have their passion in life, whether that's fucking guns or retics or cobras. I don't want anybody's passion in life taken away from them with the stroke of some politician's pen. I think, if you act responsibly with what you're doing, I do not want anybody to lose their passion in life. But we have some bad actors in our community. We do.
Yeah,
we all know it. We could all name a bunch of them. We won't do that because we're polite. We're not going to probably do that. But we're all thinking of names, and everybody watching this podcast is thinking of 10 jackasses that they know. We all have those people. We know who they are. It's like I don't know what to do about these people, but it's a problem.
Well, inevitably, the way laws work in the United States and the way this is all going to happen is if laws aren't changed, it's going to continually to be state to state. I don't think there'll be a big picture, all 50 state thing that ever happens. So I do think that people in this hobby may get chased around a little bit because of it. I don't know. Like I said, I guess when it happens, you see what happens. The joke with the big snake, not the joke, but when it was set in stone that you couldn't travel over state lines with Burmese pythons, everybody went to Texas, and then they realized there wasn't a customer base anymore because they all went to the same place. And a lot of people went out of business because of it. But then there's people that stuck it out in Tennessee that had albinos on their table for $450 when they couldn't get rid of them for $150. So there was still a way for some of these guys to stay in business.
I live in Washington State, and I do all the major expos. There's like a few every year, and you rarely see berms and retics. Like I don't want to have a bunch of that stuff, but even within my state, you do just fine selling berms. Like if you had some, there are berms, but you don't see very many. You can go a whole expo and not see a single berm.
So
they're definitely, you might not want to mass produce hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, but
just the example. But like, so in your region, is it Oregon that's trying to pass something that says no more hunting, no more fishing in the state?
Yeah, that kind of stuff never really passes because it's. Do you know how many people live in Oregon because there's so much wilderness and they like to go hunting and fishing?
Oh yeah.
We should be thankful that the people that hate us are so ridiculous, so they overreach so far. We're gonna ban all hunting and fishing. Like, no, you're not. Like, are you fucking crazy? Like, would you like to just? We're gonna ban Oregon's economy, basically. Like, people live in Oregon because it's a wilderness. A lot of people because it's a beautiful wilderness. There's so much of that stuff. You're gonna ban that? That's why people go there. Like, it's ridiculous.
I think that goes into what you're saying, though, Nick. It's like, there's people that poach. There's people that aren't responsible hunters. There's people that aren't responsible fishermen. And that's the problem with everything. There's always somebody that's going to be irresponsible. That doesn't mean you're going to ban the whole thing or put such heavy regulations on it where it makes it like close to impossible.
I don't hunt. I don't have any interest in hunting. I don't understand the joy.
Hunting is great. It does.
I do not understand. I do not personally understand. I would argue that point a little bit. I don't. I argue the logic that like
so much money, even those big games, all the money goes into conservation.
I think you're gonna have a hard time convincing most people that if you have an endangered animal, that the solution is somehow killing them. Is somehow the problem is not enough of a thing, and then the solution is killing some of them. Doesn't seem like. I think there's probably a better solution in a lot of cases than that. But
here when
I'll argue trophy hunting.
I'm not interested in hunting. I don't hunt. I don't
either. I don't derive joy from killing animals. I like animals, but I don't want to ban hunting.
I catch and release. I usually don't keep. Sometimes I do because
in this country, hunting is well regulated. It does not hurt the population of things. Like, we hunt mostly alpha male species. You pick off, even if you pick the dominant male deer, elk, moose, whatever. There's another one's going to take his place in 2 seconds. You're not as regulated. You're not. If you follow the rules, I don't have any problem. I don't want to do it because I think most wild game tastes terrible. If I could hunt a cow, I'd probably get into it. I'm not. It's not my thing, but I don't want to take away your thing. I don't want to take away somebody else's thing. If you play by the rules, it's a regulated thing. It's fine. It's not my thing, but it's not my job to put my. I don't want to force my opinion that I don't want to hunt, so nobody else should. It's not my job to tell the people what to do. If you're playing by the rules and that's your thing, I'm not going to stop you. But there are certain people in this country that cannot sleep at night unless they're telling everybody else how to live their life. They just can't sleep at night knowing that somebody else is living their life. They just can't do it. They got to get in there and put their opinions on everybody, try to legislate what they want on everybody, force everybody else to get on the same page of what they think. And I just fundamentally disagree.
Those people have like mental and control issues. But
I don't. Like I said, I don't want to own guns. I don't want to go hunt. I don't want to tell you not to do those things, though. If that's your thing, you need to pursue the things that make you happy. If you're playing by the rules, you're not breaking the freaking law.
When you do that,
then you should pursue that because that's what you're into. It doesn't matter that it's not what I'm into. It's not my business what you're into, nor you're into business what I'm into. As long as I'm not stepping on anybody else's toes, we should all live and let live.
I agree.
Get on everybody's business. Unless what you're doing is so detrimental to all of us collectively, then maybe. But it's usually not. It's like my keeping snakes doesn't affect anybody else. So leave me alone.
So,
it's like...
True.
After this documentary ruins our lives, what kind of jobs you guys going to get?
I'm pretty much unemployable, I think, at this point. I've been breeding pythons full-time for 20 years.
Yeah. I was thinking car sales, maybe?
Right. Used car sales. I don't even know. That's such an apocalyptic sort of... It's so hard to even wrap my brain around.
I don't think that's going to happen. That's not going to happen. If it does, I don't know. I'll probably start a YouTube channel, being a content creator, and just complaining about the Monsters of God thing and how it ruined like my ability to keep animals. And I'd probably go around like harassing legislators until I get thrown in prison or something. I don't know.
There you go.
Something like that.
There you go. That's... But yeah, there are people who are absolutely, that is their goal. They don't think you should own pets. No. Reptiles are just the low-hanging fruit of the pet hierarchy. It's like,
yeah, I know.
We are the ones you keep snakes and that's gross. So
Exactly.
it's like there, of course, and like, so there's a hierarchy of these things, and then the venomous is even the most like deviant of that. So it's like, once they get rid of all of the venomous people and they get rid of all this all those reptile keepers, don't think they're not going to stop. They're going to eventually. You're not going to be able to have a cat or a dog, and then it'll be, well, you can't eat animals either. It's like these people are not going to stop, and we're just the lowest rung on the totem pole. We're the easiest low-hanging fruit to go after, so we get it first. But it will just keep going.
I thought Bill Gates has a
Well,
new meat product.
That was during like what was that?
Oh, you go ahead, buddy.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's what they were doing at that one Lacey Act amendment years ago. What was also tied to it was like pushing meat alternative diets was into legislation, and then not being able to cross state lines with animals to sell them, including like cats and dogs. And you can see what they're trying to do. It's like
Make it
it's
difficult.
pretty insane that they have these ideologies that like people should not have any normal or emotional interactions with animals whatsoever, unless it's like maybe observational out in the wild, and like that's it. It's like pretty very odd ideology.
These animals belong in
you actually kind of. It's almost nihilistic once you get to the root core of it. It's basically like, well, if you don't own animals, and like, well, animals can't consent to this stuff, it's etc. And so it's a very bizarre ideology and way to look at things. It's pretty nihilistic because they're like, well, if you can't own animals, you can't hunt animals, then therefore you can't have any animal abuse or problems with people interacting with animals.
Here's a fact,
therefore ban it all.
An undisputable fact that it seems to be lost on a lot of these people. It's like, fun fact, you cannot exist on this planet without coming at the expense of other living things on this planet. It doesn't matter. You can virtue signal all you want and tell yourself, sprain your elbow, pat yourself in the back about how righteous and virtuous you are in your cause. Doesn't fucking matter. You know how many animals have to die for your vegan produce? Like, a bunch, because where did they grow that produce? Your organic kale and all this other crap in a fucking field. What lived in that field before they planted up all those vegetables? And what did they do to those animals that trotted into there? Oh, all the animals that they killed to make that farm to grow your plants, and all the animals they continually spray for and kill to keep them from eating the crops they're growing on the land. It's like, you cannot not have an impact. It's insane to think that. It's like, it's not, this idea that, the animals, they belong in the wild, but we're also not going to do shit to protect the wild either. It's like, guess what? The wild isn't the wild anymore. It's like, I got news for you. Like, I've been to a lot of the places a lot of these more exotic animals come from, and you see the habitat degradation. You see the complete lack of protection. You see this going away, and then what? It's like, we're going to, like, even in this country especially, this country's the most hypocritical. Like, like in the state of Florida, like, you have a lot of endangered species that are protected by the ESA, but you can also buy businesses can buy a permit from the state of Florida to exempt themselves and pave over habitat and stuff. It's like, oh, you can't do anything. Let's go for tourist habitat. What? But I can buy a permit to pave over the last little bit of habitat and make a parking lot? Okay, that's fine. As long as it's for business. It's like you protect the animals, but not the places they live. It's like you can have a place in California where, like, you can you can bulldoze the it's illegal. These chuckwallas are protected because they're endangered, so it's illegal to go get them. But it's perfectly legal to bulldoze that rocky outcrop to make a parking lot for a Walmart. That's perfectly legal. But you'd be in trouble if you went and collected the lizards out of that right before the bulldozer got there. This hypocritical nonsense that are wildlife laws. Some of them are well-meaning laws. Some of them not so well-meaning. It's infuriating. Absolutely infuriating.
Okay.
So,
yep.
That's the end of my soapbox on legislation and shitty, slanderous documentaries.
I think it was a good take. I think that was a real hot take, buddy.
We've seen this before. Quite literally seen this before. Why are we getting... Oh, it's going to be different this time. It's like, not if you know the people involved at all, or familiar with their track record, or ever had any interactions with them. It's like, it's not going to be. It's like, it's not going to be.
So you look at it as, it's not like the government doesn't know what we're doing. You just look at this as being an excuse for them to do something now.
Yeah.
When it's pop culture when it's in everyone's face.
The more traction this documentary gets, it'll generate some ill will in the public, and to make local legislators at the state, local, and federal level be more amenable, the more aware they are of this, they'll be more amenable to like bullshit legislation put forward by the usual stuffs. It's always the same groups. It's always PETA. It's always the Nature Conservancy. It's always the same people. It's always the same groups. It became really obvious, and they go even like local level even. I produced African rock pythons 2 seasons ago for the first time. I was out of town on vacation. I was in Papua when the eggs were laid. A friend came over, who was about a mile away, and helped pull the eggs. Well, long story short, my 19 perfect eggs with 100% fertility and no slugs, all adhered, got dropped on the concrete floor, like 5 feet. Fell onto the concrete floor. Yeah. So I hatched 4. 5 with the distance, 1 died in the shell, 4 hatched. Which is not unexpected when you drop the clutch 5 feet onto a concrete floor. So hatch rate, not so good. Basically scrambled my eggs on day 1. I hatched 4. They were all females. There were no females even on like Morph Market. It took me about a year to sell 4 female rock pythons for not even a lot of money. Because I did what nobody ever does, and I am worried about, I don't want any liability. So I'm not selling a rock python to anybody who lives in a place where it's not legal to keep a rock python. Which turns out to be most places. Like, most places, they're not legal. Even though the people don't know that, when you get into whatever their county laws are, there's usually some sort of exotic animal ordinance, and what I found was that it's always the exact same exotic animal ordinance. Copy and pasted, with the exact same weirdly vague wording, which makes it unclear if it is illegal to have an animal that is 8 feet long, or if it's illegal to have a species that could get to 8 feet long. It's very poorly written, because it's the same law. What happens is, they keep failing at the federal level, they fail at the state level, they started going door to door at the local level, county by county, city by city. And it's always the same thing, how the American political system works. It's like you go up to your local stupid city council member or whatever, county official, and say, oh, we love the job you're doing here and everything, and we just want to like give you this donation for your re-election, councilman and everything. Oh, and if it's not totally unrelated, if it's not too much trouble, if you wouldn't mind taking a look at this legislation we've already pre-written for you, obvious it's the quid pro quo. We expect you to introduce and pass this bullshit legislation without even reading it probably in exchange for this contribution to your campaign. But that's how politics works in this country. And that's why it's the same over and over and over again. Didn't matter whether it was in the Metro Detroit area or in rural fucking, the rural Midwest or in the Southeast. It's the same freaking legislation because it's the same thing. That's how they're doing this. It will be the same thing. And there'll be a ramp up of that in the wake of this documentary because they'll have a little more, oh yeah, I heard something about all these crazy reptile people, so they'll be more amenable. They'll find a more willing audience for this bullshit. And the fact that they're doing this is not surprising at all. The fact that so many people in the hobby are so blissfully ignorant of what the point of the intention of this is, and the result of it will be, they're going to somehow act surprised when it bites them in the ass. Oh man, my local city just banned everything. It's like, yeah, surprise, surprise. Don't be surprised. That's the point. That was the whole point.
All right, so if anybody asks you to do a reptile documentary, I mean, it's kind of like...
They have.
Well,
years
I mean,
ago.
for anybody, I'm going to say it's actually kind of a dull point, and you'll see why. Because if they ask me to do a documentary, I was going to say, and if you're a total piece of shit, just say no, because they're going to use it. But if you're a total piece of shit, you probably will say yes.
Yeah, that's paradoxically true.
Yeah.
Fun fact, it's been a number of years now, but I had the Discovery Channel wanted to do some filming at my facility like for a show. And I told them, fuck no. This was years ago. Do you remember that show Dirty Jobs, that Mike Rowe guy, where you go do like shitty jobs? They had like an animal version of that sort of show. It was basically that show, but it was like Dirty Jobs, but with like people who worked in the animal industry. And they were apparently filming in Seattle for, I don't know who they were filming. It wasn't a reptile person. The show wasn't reptile specific. but it was over in the Seattle area, and I'm like a couple 100 miles from there, the other side of the state. But they called me up. The producers of this television show for the Discovery Channel wanted to come over here for a couple of days and film here and the python breeding operation. I told them, fuck no. I was more diplomatic than that, but it was definitely, absolutely not. You're not a fucking chance. I don't need the fucking notoriety, frankly. And they always do the same thing. They always tell you, oh, it's going to be, oh, it'll be, they always make it seem like they're going to portray you to be some sort of legit thing. And then they always are going to edit it and make it look like it's the most sensationalized, ridiculous, dangerous, play up every sensationalized thing. Because what they always do. Do you know, and you guys both must know at least somebody that's been on television for reptiles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I would say the one thing.
Do you know any of them that ever had anything good to say about the experience? They always edited to make it seem like they were doing something super dangerous or super stupid. Whatever they can do to make it seem like it was more sensational, they do.
Exactly, because if they had a documentary about how great the reptile hobby was and how and like all the people that are doing stuff good, they'd get no views. It's kind of like the news. That's why they like to portray, of course, a lot of bad stuff and make things sound like more gloom and doom because that's what's going to get more people's interest. Kind of like Tiger King. Like, look at this friggin' crazy hillbilly that tried to get somebody killed that owns tigers and all of this stuff and acts like a lunatic. This guy makes for good TV. It's a lot of drama. And so that's what they want. They want people with drama and, you know, stuff that they can exploit and make it look like crazy. So anybody that's watching this documentary, like 99% of people are going to be people that don't like reptiles in the first place really that much. And, I mean, you see it in comments on Facebook. People, like, you'll see it on Snakes. Like, I don't think people should be allowed to own these. And basically, what people are saying is, like, what you touched on is, like, this doesn't affect me, and it's not of interest to me, so therefore it should be banned because I don't give a shit about it.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of idiots that think like that. I can't believe that people are that close-minded in general. Like, there's so many people out there that are that close-minded and idiotic. Kind of like the same thing, like, I'm not into hunting. Hunting actually does a lot of good things for conservation. And you can know why, Nick. Billions of dollars goes into duck hunting a year. So if there's $1 billion industry, they're saving a lot of land for them and they're conserving a lot of land for, waterfowl and stuff. And a lot of these waterfowl habitats are extremely good habitats for other animals, too. When I go out herping for hognose, a lot of them are waterfowl conservation adjacent places.
Hunting in this country is a success story. Like we're not hunting anything to extinction. There are more deer now than there should be. Like we're like, it is set up in a way. It is, but as it exists now in this country, you're not hunting anything. You're not. It's regulated well enough. Like it's fine. Like I'm not into it because I don't want to eat a deer. I think venison is yucky. It's gross. No matter how many times I had it, it's always gamey, and I don't like it. I don't want to kill an animal. I don't like killing things if I don't have to. And I don't want to eat the end product, so I have no interest in doing it. But if you like venison, I wish I liked it. It's very healthy. It's super healthy. I just think it tastes gross. Like I have no problem. Like that's your thing. I don't want to push what I have my opinions, my thoughts, my interests, but that's for me. My opinions, thoughts, and all these things are just for me. I have no right to project that and force you to go along with what I'm doing. Like I don't like hunting or I don't want to hunt, so you shouldn't be able to either. That's not how this country's supposed to work. At all. Like, you should do if you're not hurting anybody else, you're not breaking the law, you're not causing a wave of extinction by your hunting. If that's what makes you happy, you should be allowed to go do that. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter that it's not for me. Who cares what's for me? It's what's for you, as long as, and what I'm doing isn't for you, probably. But you need to stay out of my business, too. Like, it's like, everybody needs to mind their own freaking business.
Yeah, it's let everybody be the land of the free, not the land of. We should be able to pursue fucks on Facebook.
We should be able to pursue the things that make us happy. It is not other people's place to judge whether that's good or bad. If it's not causing any problems, and it's fucking not, you should be allowed to do it. You shouldn't have. And I will stand up for people's rights to do all manner of stupid things I have no interest in doing, but that's their thing. It's not my thing. Doesn't matter. It's not my thing. It's their thing, and they should do their thing. Whatever that is. So, yeah, have at it.
Is there any way to find those hybrids you made way back in the day? Like, is there a Nick Mutton line of hybrids I could find? Like, if I wanted that in my collection?
No, thankfully they're probably long dead. But more than likely, the vast majority of snakes and reptiles that people produce never breed. The overwhelming majority. I would bet you that of all the... I probably produced 10,000 pythons at this point over all these years. like, I mean, I probably average like 400 a year over the last, it's a lot over 30 years. And I will bet you that probably fewer than 5% of all the snakes I produce in all those thousands ever produce an egg for anybody. Most of them, a lot of them end up as pets. They get changed owners a bunch of times. They die. Whatever happens to them, they never breed. So I did see one that I produced in my very first clutch about 12 years after I produced it. I produced that first clutch of diamond coastal hybrids, intergrades, but back then I thought that was okay because, well, diamonds and coastals intergrade in the wild, so it's totally fine in captivity. It's natural. That was a complete misunderstanding of how intergrade zones work, what a coastal carpet python even is. Everything I had believed about that based on the information available at the time turned out to be complete nonsense. So they're absolutely hybrids. Coastal carpets are two different species for that matter, then this was not the one that would even integrate with diamonds anyway. But we learn more over all these decades. And I was very careful. But that first clutch, I had like 23 babies. And it was ridiculous. It was like 19 males and 4 females. It was the most insane, absolutely insane sex ratio. So I had all these males. And so I traded a few of them to the local pet store for feeders and whatnot. Because what am I ever going to do with all these males? And this was back in the day before when you had to ship stuff on Delta Airlines. There was no FedEx shipping. There was barely any reptile internet. The hobby was like not. It was also you'd have to send pictures to anybody because there's no digital cameras. This is in the mid 90s, like 1994, 1995, over 30 years ago now. I'm super old. I traded a few of these things to the local pet shop. I was worried though that since they were intergrades, that people would pass them off as something they weren't because they kind of look like coastal carpets. So I even wrote up a whole little thing and typed it, printed out so the pet shop could put that little tag on there and everything. This is exactly what these things are because I was worried that they'd get misrepresented later. Like 12 years later, I was in that same pet shop buying crickets for some lizards. And one of those snakes came back to the same pet shop. Like 12 years later, as a large adult, the person moved out of town. They gave it back to the pet shop they got it from. So, oh, this is one they gave you. And there it was. That snake I was so worried was going to get misrepresented. And I even typed all that up, labeled as a fucking jungle carpet. There's someone as a jungle carpet. Like, it was absolutely not that. Like, it was like, there it was. Like, I did all that. It just shows you, even me trying to be, is doing everything I could to make sure that wouldn't happen 12 years later. It's clearly not a jungle, labeled as the wrong damn thing.
What if it said, like, jungle carpet python produced by Nick Mutton?
No, I didn't even say that. But I'm like, I asked him about it. He goes, oh, yeah, that was, the guy that ran the pet shop I knew him. And I was like, what? It's like, it just shows you, when you make things like that, they will eventually get misrepresented. Despite your best efforts, you're saying that, well, I'll do that. It won't be a problem if you're honest about it. That is just bullshit you tell yourself to relinquish any responsibility for your actions, to exempt yourself from any culpability for your own actions. Well, as long as you're honest about how you represent them, it won't cause any problems. It fucking will. It will. 100% of the time, it will. It does. Well,
here's the thing.
You're on the hook. There's no getting off the hook. You just accept that I am causing problems by doing this. I just don't care that I'm causing problems.
No, because if you're doing it right, you're documenting it, you can't be responsible for what other people do, even though some people may not construe the information correctly. You can say the same thing about like the gun ownership and stuff like that. Just because sometimes people aren't responsible doesn't mean it should affect the other people. Same with if you're selling some hybrid stuff and you're notating it and you're making a point. And I think back then it was a lot different because you didn't have the internet and stuff, and the reptile hobby wasn't as strong as it is today.
If you were making cars that had like really, really poorly designed brake lines for the front brakes, right, and you knew there was going to be a super high failure rate with those brake lines, but you told the person who bought your cars, yeah, these brake lines are shit, they'll go out at you, and then people kept dying in car crashes because of your shitty brake lines, would you then say, I did everything. I documented my shitty brake lines on these cars. I told you they were shitty. I'm not responsible for all these people dying from my shitty product. Like you kind of are. You do have some responsibility there for this problem that you are creating a problem, and there are consequences. Do the people who come later who do dumb shit and ignore what you told them, have culpability. Yeah, absolutely. But you're not exactly harmless in the process when you do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're comparing it to an analogy where there's a faulty mechanism that the person has no control over.
If you know with virtual
control over the labeling and documenting all this stuff.
If you know with virtual certainty that your hybrid offspring are going to get absorbed into the pure gene pool and passed off and misrepresented, and you know that with a virtual certainty that will happen, are you really harmless in doing that? No, I don't think you are. When you know it's going to happen.
Added then into like I'm not harmless in the
Can you give me a single example? Can you give me a single example where people have done that, make some stupid hybrid thing where it didn't happen? Because I don't think you'll be able to find a single example where that didn't happen. I can't think of a single one.
There's no way to know what everybody's doing.
Find me a pure bearded dragon that doesn't have any Pagona barbata blood in it. You can't. Because we all had to have those German giant bearded dragons in the 90s and early 2000s. Where'd they go? They just became Vidiceps again. Where did everything go? They just got absorbed into whatever it looked like.
When that's a different species? I thought that was a line.
Yeah. Good luck. You'll never find a pure bearded dragon you can be confident is a pure Pagona Vidiceps. Because originally we had three species We had three species of Pagonas. This is a ridiculous thing. We had three species of Pagona, of bearded dragons. We had a big one, a small one, and a middle-sized one that was more colorful. They hybridized Vidiceps, the more colorful, middle-sized one, with the big, ugly ones, and with the smaller, drab ones. And you made slightly smaller and slightly larger. And then eventually all that got mixed together, and where did you end up with? Right back where you started with the middle-sized bearded dragon that has little genetic contributions from two other species in it, that you will never unfuck that in a million years. You'll never unfuck that. Because nobody, but I was honest about it. I was honest about what it's like. Yeah, well, find.
I don't think any of those people were honest though, and also
find a pure
dragon people alone. They have too much on their plate.
I'm
they gotta
saying
soak them like all the time. They eat so much. They have the UV.
I'm saying
they have
like,
enough problems. They have the bearded dragon people have a lot of problems.
Find a pure reticulated python. It's really damn difficult to find one that doesn't have hybrid. That isn't a hybrid, because they couldn't help but put those dwarf retics in everything. Find one that's pure. They do exist. I have all four species of retic in pure form. But it took years and a shitload of money and years to find. It was way more difficult than it should be. Like, way more difficult.
What about those retics in Puerto Rico?
I think it took me 5 years and about $12,000 in 5 years to find 1.1 of each of the four species of retic that didn't have any hybrid blood in them. It was ridiculously difficult. When there's so many retics. But they're almost all hybrids. You got to really, really, really know people and it's scour the earth to find ones that aren't hybrids. And eventually you won't even be able to find that probably. I'm just saying, like, when you do that stuff, when you make a 94% hybrid that's 94% one thing and 6% the other thing, and it looks just like the thing that's 94%, what do you think? Do you really think that's not going to cause a problem? Because it fucking is. And it always does. 100% of the time it does.
No, like, not 100%, but like you even said, most of the time animals don't get bred. So
if you make a 94% Kalatoa dwarf retic that's 6% mainland retic, and the mixed blood retic is a $200 snake no one gives a shit about, and the pure Kalatoa is a $2,000 snake that people very much care about, what do you think is going to happen? Exactly what you think is going to happen happens, and it's always what happens. It's always going to be what happens.
$2,000 pure Kalatoa, you're probably going to want to breed to another pure Kalatoa, not at $200.
You'd be fucking surprised. You would be surprised at what people do.
You could breed it to the $200 one to make more of the like almost
it's
pure Kalatoa.
Like, it is like
off as pure Kalatoa.
Eventually, what that your 96% Kalatoa hybrid, by the time it gets sold and then resold and sold to the third or fourth owner, it's a pure Kalatoa by that point because someone's conveniently forgot along the way.
It ends up being pure. So
what I'm saying is, if you know that that's going to, if you know with certainty that that is going to happen when you start that process, you don't get to say your hands are not clean. You do not say, I'm not responsible. I did the right thing. Selling marijuana, I don't think that's necessarily like. No one's getting killed.
Oh yeah, somebody could smoke it and they start smoking a lot and then they don't like go to their job as much. Now you're responsible for them losing their job. There you go. You just got somebody to lose their job.
I don't know that I put. Again, that's another one of those things like. I don't smoke pot. I never do. Like I'm never going to, but I'm certainly not. I'll defend the people's right to do that. Like I don't.
I think that people have. I agree with you.
I think they do. I think if you work hard all week and you get home from work on Friday after busting your ass all week, if you want to fucking watch Murder, She Wrote reruns and load a bowl and get baked out of your gourd. I'm not going to stop you. You should do that. I don't care. That's your business. I'm not going to participate, but you should be able to do that. I don't
just
think
don't load a bowl and watch Monsters of God. Watch anything else.
Does it matter to the wild status of these animals? No, but you are pissing in the gene pool that every herper after you has to deal with the mess you made. And you take away other people's right to keep the things they want to keep because you made this a selfish decision to do this. You deny somebody else later. Well, I can never have a pure prog shy Mollerus ever again because everybody couldn't do anything but make hybrids with them, and now they're gone and you can't import them anymore. So now I don't ever get to work with those because other people made, in my estimation, quite questionable decisions. They took away my ability to work with stuff because they did this, knowing full well what the consequence of that was going to be. You don't get it, and if you're going to do it and you just don't care, I can almost respect that. I used to, I can almost, back in the day, I had a friend, Sean Christian, who helped start RGI Genetics. He's still around. And he made a bunch of hybrid carpets, and we'd argue about it all the time, but he would just like, yeah, I just don't care. I'm like, well, I can't. He was like, yeah. He goes, I'm going to do this. I know it's going to cause problems. It's going to fuck things up later. I accept that and don't care. I'm like, well, I can't argue that. Like, okay. It's like my problem is less with the people. It's the people that are like, nope, I'm not. My hands are clean. I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you did. It's like, if you just don't care, well, then that's your actions and your opinion are completely consistent with each other. It's like, I don't agree with you, but I can't argue that. That's logical. It's a rational position to take. I just don't care. Okay. I can't argue with that. It's like, but try to like have it both ways. I'm not causing a problem. I'm going to do this, but I'm not contributing to a problem. Yeah, you are. It's like you're just trying to tell yourself you're not, but you are. If you are and you know you are and you just don't give a shit, well, I can't. It's hard to argue with that. You just don't care. It's like, whatever. You don't care. You're consistent.
Well, I've always thought that the northern blue-tongued skink community didn't really have the best accountability on where a lot of that stuff came from.
No, those people just kind of lied. It
was
sounded
hybridized along the way. So I know, like, we ran into a lot of things in that community where we used to argue purity, but I'm not sure there's any of those animals in the United States you can even trust anymore.
I don't keep any skinks, and the biggest reason, it's not that I don't think they're cool, it's that it's another messy complex of species that people have morphs and have hybridized the shit out of them, and I don't want to even wade in to try to untangle it. I think they're neat. I like when I go to Australia, I like finding them. I think they're neat animals. I can appreciate them, but I wouldn't ever keep them because of those reasons. I don't know enough specifics about it's obviously a fucking mess. Even from me, with very little knowledge, it's obviously a mess. I don't know enough of the particulars about this or that to wade in and have too much of a firm opinion on this or that or the other. So I don't want to do that, other than it's obviously kind of a mess, and I don't want to... Keeping the whole carpet python complex straight and all of that is enough of a job for me. I do not need to take on other species. It's why I don't have any boa constrictors, because it's a fucking mess too. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with another complex of things that is equally all as screwed up for the same stupid reasons. The carpets are my first passion. I'll deal with that. I have a giant collection. I've been into it so long that I have animals that go back so far that when it wasn't quite so much of a mess, so I can keep that stuff straight. But the rest of the stuff, to get into boa constrictors now and trying to find something that's like not a hybrid or something, I just don't even want to do it. I'll just...
Got an interesting one.
All right, so what percentage is acceptable to be considered a peer? 98, 99, or does it have to be 100%? Because outside of going to whatever locality and collecting it yourself, you can't actually be sure.
That's a bullshit argument that people have thrown at me for decades. It's like, well, as long as you didn't collect it yourself argument. And you know what? If I did go collect it myself, the next argument in the absurd chain of events would be, well, how do you know a bird didn't just pick it up in one place and drop it? It always eventually ends with the bird dropped it, the Monty Python, a bird could have dropped it argument. And that's when you know the argument is over. It's like, at some point, it's a fallacy to think you're ever going to have complete 100% absolute knowledge of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like eventually absolute certainty. It's like, how do you know who your parents are? Because they fucking told you they were your parents. Did you run your DNA against theirs to test? No. It's like, well, you look like them and they told you they were parents and you're willing to go with that. You didn't do any further digging. How do you know the Earth is a sphere? Because somebody told you. How do you know that plate tectonics is real? Because people told you. We don't have to rediscover how to make the wheel every generation. It is sometimes okay to take a little bit for granted. It's like, you're never going to have absolute 100% certainty of anything. But if there is a point where enough evidence, you have so much evidence for one side and no evidence that contradicts that, and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, you're probably just going to have to go with it being a fucking duck. If you're like this, it's like, this is the argument from absurdity is what this is called. It's like, oh, it's like,
you got another one.
You're going to get a bunch of them, but it is still an argument from absurdity.
Are Axanthic IJs pure?
That is, well, no, they don't exist because there's such fucking thing as an IJ. Next question.
Are Axanthic Papuan pythons pure?
Probably.
Okay.
That is
Probably
one that
Papuan pure.
there is no evidence that they are not. There is
Where
no.
did Axanthic come from?
A fucking snake. What do you mean? Where did it come from? Just
All right.
because you have an okay, you can have. There is an Axanthic coastal lineage that came from Europe, and there is a European Axanthic Papuan carpet lineage.
Oh.
They have proven to be compatible. That means fucking nothing. It means nothing. Now, if they were incompatible, no one would have asked that question. Being compatible itself doesn't prove anything. How many lines of compatible Axanthic ball pythons have come out of the wild separately? A bunch. Wow. Most of the time when there are incompatible lineages of wild Axanthic ball python that have come in, and there have been a bunch of wild Axanthics that later proved to be compatible with Snakekeeper or VPI or whatever. Compatibility doesn't mean it's the same thing or that they are hybrids. Incompatibility would definitely mean they are not the same thing. But compatibility in and of itself does not mean they are the same thing and from the same source. The backstory for the Axanthic Papuan carpets is limited. I would be happier if there was more information. There is no information that says they're hybrids or suggests that. There is less information. I would like to have a much longer history. The more information you have, I have no reason to doubt it. There is no reason to doubt it. I would like to have more reason. It's one of those things that, and even in my mind, because I'm kind of a skeptic, there'll always be a little bit of an asterisk in the back of my mind.
You
it's
said
like,
they came from the same guy that had coastal Axanthics.
That is not true. Who is saying
And all of
that?
a sudden, boom, Axanthic Papuans. We got MFA Reptiles.
That is Robert Moss, and he's probably going to call me tomorrow, and I'm going to have to fucking explain all this about it to him. That is not, he is conflating multiple things. That is not
He says, as soon as
true.
you hang up on this, he says he's calling you. That's
I am
what he said
eating
right
dinner
here.
because
He's
my
calling
dinner
you.
I was supposed to eat
He's
2
like,
hours.
"Get ready, Nick."
I'm not answering the fucking phone. I was supposed to eat dinner 2 hours ago. Like, I'm not. It is 9 o'clock. I
Oh,
ain't
you're
eaten
supposed
dinner
to eat it
yet.
like right before you get on the podcast. Like
That's too early. That's a problem for me.
Oh yeah,
I
you're.
watched.
I'm 3 hours earlier.
Sausage.
It is not. It is
Yeah,
not
Dave
the
got to
same
watch
guy.
me eat sausage and cabbage, which actually I know due to my sister's genealogy test, I'm from a land of cabbage people because I'm
I
Slovak.
see he's just blowing up the thing, and he's not right, and he's conflating things from different conversations, and it's.
That's what Paul Harris told him. Paul Harris.
It
He sounds
fucking-
like he'd be from like.
It
he'd
is
be from,
not
like,
what Paul
American
Harris.
Psycho. Paul
It is not
Harris.
what Paul Harris told him. I've been friendly. Paul's been a good friend of mine for over 20 years. That is not.
Can we get Robert Moss and then Paul Harris and you together?
No.
Why not? It sounds like a good podcast.
You will never get Paul. Paul is a fucking recluse. Paul has done exactly one podcast ever, and it was my old podcast that I hosted, and he only did it because it was me.
Oh, you're gonna be on it though. Good.
That was a long time ago. He will never do it. I have a new podcast I'm recording episodes for. I can't even get into it now. Like he is a recluse. I would love it. He will
Get
never
him
do
on
it.
a phone call. Don't tell him he's on a podcast.
I would have to entrap him.
Yeah, trap
I would
him.
have to entrap him. He'd never
He's
do
such
it.
a recluse, he
He'll
won't
never-
find out anyway. So no harm, no foul.
For a guy who knows a lot, has been around and produced so much stuff, who's kind of like he's a very quiet, he's as loud and kind of over the top as I sometimes come across. He is the exact opposite. He's very He's very British. He's very reserved. He's very like he's not
He's very British. What does that mean?
He's English. He's very.
Oh, okay.
He's not. I don't know. He's not.
Go on.
Boisterous, perhaps. I don't know. He's not. He doesn't. He's not one of these. He's very old school. He's not like a lot of these newer herpers that are just absolutely want attention and they do anything for shock and awe and attention. He's not an attention seeker like at all.
What if you
to the
call
point where it's bad
soccer?
for. It's like it's what?
What if you call football soccer? How British is he?
We don't talk about football, but he's a fan though because it's in their DNA. But I'm just saying, like he's not one of these attention-seeking hobbyists of the current generation at all. He much
sounds
more
great. We got to get him on.
He is, he's a wealth of knowledge. The guy's bred so much stuff, but he's like, you're never gonna get him on. You could try, never happen.
I don't know. Is like
Never.
entrapping bad? Like
It
what
will
if you said,
never
like
happen.
this? We're gonna entrap him, and we don't care.
He is
We were being
never,
honest about it. Like, we
never
don't give a
do
shit.
it.
We're gonna
Like,
entrap this guy. Let's get him.
I talk to him when he gets going pretty good, but I've known him for so long. But it is so he's not like me or you guys. He's not. He's very
Sellouts.
It's never happened.
Bunch of sellouts.
I asked him about going on my new podcast I'm doing with Warren Booth, and it was like, yeah, I could forget it. Like, not a chance, zero chance. It's a friendly audience. Like, what? Like, nope, never gonna happen. Should I tell him, like, geez, you sell snakes for a living. Like, getting exposure to a wider audience is a good thing. Nope, you won't do it. So,
Get a little sad over those things.
I think it is sad. I think that old timers not doing podcasts is a bad thing for the hobby. I think people that have been doing this for 30, 40 years. I mean, Paul's been doing this stuff. I've been doing this stuff since the mid 90s. Paul's in the late 80s. Like, he's even before me. Like, he's been doing this so long. Guys like that have so much knowledge and have read so much stuff and have seen so much change in the hobby. And they have so much that they contribute to the history of things that people just don't know because it was so long ago that it's so interesting. But most of them just not going to do it.
What if you offer him like something really cool, like a pure like?
I know a lot of these guys. Like I know Casey Lazick pretty well. I know Casey Lazick really well. You think he's gonna? Fuck no, never gonna get. I would love to. Never in a million years. Another guy that's just a wealth of knowledge, just knows so much stuff. It would be so great, but not a chance. Not a chance. It's like it might be a generational thing or something. But
said Vince, they said those podcasts were lost.
What? I don't have the files for those. That was my old podcast. It's been a long time. It's been over a decade ago now. So that would be. I don't know where. I mean, I'm sure they exist somewhere. My old friend Scott Waters probably has a file of them somewhere. They might. I have no access to them at all. But yeah, no, I did a great one with Ed Bradley, a guy from down in Temecula, and Ed is like in his 80s then, and so he's talking about keeping reptiles in the 50s.
Wow.
Like, and what the hobby was like in the 50s. Like, it was like the history of the hobby from like this. It was so interesting.
It's probably three people.
He's talking about like what people used for cages and this kind of stuff, and it was just such an interesting talking to people that have this deep knowledge of the history of our hobby. But they just are not doing podcasts. I wish there's a way to preserve that knowledge because these people are going to go away eventually. I'm going to go away. We're all going to go away at some point, and then what we know is just lost. Is this it's not written down anywhere, and I hate to see that happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe
That's always what I tell them too, and they never want to say yes.
Maybe I'll try to get Paul on again. I know if I can't convince him, like it's never going to happen.
Let's see Paul Harris's podcast.
It's like Paul. Yeah, Paul's. I wish because he knows a lot of stuff. He has a lot of knowledge of keeping and breeding a ton of stuff after 40 years of doing it, but he does not seek the limelight at all. That's for sure.
This isn't all we need. The people just need to hear information. That's what This isn't. We're not getting much attention. We're gonna get nobody's gonna two people will recognize me at the next Reptile show. And you did a podcast, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay. And they walk away. 2 people. They're like, I liked your one podcast. They said you said something funny, and they're like, and there's some good information. I'm like, thank you, and they walk away. That's it.
I get more feedback from doing these podcasts than anything else. I'm like, why am I wasting time writing all these books and stuff? Like, I just do podcasts.
People don't want to read. People do not want to read. You got to do YouTube videos and podcasts. I'll make up like stuff, and I'm like, here, I wrote this out, and the people be like, can you just explain it to me, asshole? They're like, I'm not reading
Yeah,
it.
that's it. Like, that's
Like, okay,
the number of times
sorry.
I've had people, like, even friends of mine who will call me up and ask me to explain something. I was like, I wrote a whole book about this, and you have it. I literally sent it to you. Yeah, but could you just tell me? It's like, oh my god, like, it's maddening.
That's what I
But,
want to do. I'm gonna write. Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna write like something up. Mine are gonna be more like pan flips though, and probably like short, like kind of like articles, so they're easy to digest. Like 3 or 4 paragraphs. Something about head structure. If captive hoggos, what you should be aspiring to breed anatomically, like characteristic wise, to not get away from that. Because like hoggos are the only snakes I've really seen where if you inbreed them too much or you aren't paying attention, their head structures can end up really fucked up. Like I don't see really anything else like ending up like hoggos. You can end up with some pretty terrible animals. And my girlfriend who loves hoggos, like her favorite species, she said the first hoggo she's seen, she wasn't even interested in. She goes, I don't like that snake, whatever the fuck that is. It's a bug-eyed albino hoggos with a really short rostrum and really short face overall. And so it just didn't look good, And I mean, they have their own appeal, but it's a pet quality animal. I mean, I will say I'm the same way. The wild hoggos, head structure looks a lot better. But anyway, I wanted to write something up like that, so that way people could and something very short, has pictures in it, little entertaining. Because if you write a book with a lot of good information, that's a good way to not get information to people, because people are like, how the fuck, you expect me to read?
I want
that's
to
what
write.
we did in school, asshole.
I want
I'm
to
not
write all
going to
the-
read. Can you put it in AI, please?
There's no way to. I don't have any real interest in answering easy questions in my old age. Like, I only want to answer hard questions and difficult questions, because the easy questions are easy questions. Like,
That is true.
I want to write about the difficult things that people don't understand. I want to introduce people to much more complex aspects of these sorts of things they hadn't already thought about. So that's why I'm so interested in evolutionary biology and these sorts of things, the harder stuff. But that's the more interesting stuff to me now. Somebody's got to do that. No one was doing that, really. So I want to do those things. So I'm going to make the nerdiest podcast ever that only talks about difficult stuff nobody talks about. It's going to make 7 nerds really happy.
I think a lot of people will listen to that because, again, it's not reading. All you got to do is tell them, hey, there's a way to get away from...
I'm worried now that, people might be disappointed, because it's I've realized in the last year that I get a lot of feedback every time I go on a podcast. I think I'm starting to become the guy that goes on the podcast and has a bunch of hot takes and doesn't give a shit and just says whatever. And I think I'm becoming that guy, and just because if I think something's stupid, I'll just stop. That's stupid. That's wrong. I'll just say it because it's dumb. It's not that I don't have a filter. I just don't have. I don't want to waste time going over. I think as a society we've become too deferential to how people feel about things. And if somebody's just fucking wrong, if you try to couch your language and you try to make it soften the blow that they're wrong, they're wrong, everybody knows they're wrong, but then you try to soften how you tell them they're wrong, it almost seems like you're not calling bullshit on something. I'd rather just nope, that's not true, and just move on from it. It's like I think, are you doing if you sort of feed into people's if people believe something that's just obviously not true, if you worry about their feelings too much, are you actually doing them any favors by making it seem like maybe they might be right when they're clearly not right? It's none of this stuff is codon, people. That's wrong. It's just fucking wrong. If I try to make it be nice about maybe trying to use the right term, it's it makes it seem like maybe there's some validity where there isn't, or whatever. It's just get on the right page. It's not hard. So I think being blunt and just saying whatever, I'm starting to become that guy. So I think people will listen to this new podcast and it's oh, he is actually more respectful and doesn't use as many expletives. It's not it's a different kind of conversation, so maybe it'll be more boring. I don't know. Talking to mostly academics about sciencey stuff, but
it'll be good. I'd like to listen to it.
Yeah,
I think
William Philippek will listen to it.
Right?
You got 3 listeners right there. You said
3.
7. I think you're going to get about...
Find 4 more.
You get 70. I think you get 70.
Right?
Maybe 170.
In the podcast sort of ecosystem, I'm trying to find a niche that's not being exploited well, and I think there's a lot of let's face it, most podcasts pander to the lowest common denominator of intellectual sort of stuff. It's the most base level. You say that, Dave, and then you have me on and we talk about all kinds of freaking... Last time we were talking about adaptive introgression, and we're talking about gene duplication. It's like, that's not base level, entry level stuff. I mean, it's like...
I brought up gene duplication, but I think sometimes these terms are really easy to understand, because it's understanding.
It's literally in the name, isn't it? It's gene duplication. The term is thankfully not misleading. It's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, right. That's the problem. A lot of terms are kind of misleading, or they have, just the phrase is just not understood.
I think that
not words that are common.
I think that the arguments, the discussion, debate, it's not an argument. Arguments are adversarial. It's debate we're having on these issues with xanthism and gene duplication, all this stuff. I think that it is the better point and the real value in having that debate between you and I on this show is not really about ultimately whose opinion is right and whose is wrong. Is it exposes people to ideas and it challenges the listener to get out of their comfort zone and look into things that are outside of what they would normally tune into this podcast talking about these things, but it makes people think about things that maybe, I think you need to challenge the listener to learn something new, and that's what that serves, doesn't it? It's like, it's not even about winning or losing a debate, really. It's people listening to this like,
it's new information.
A shocking number of people listening to this will have had no idea what the phenomenon of gene duplication even was, but now they do. They learned a thing they did not know for having listened to it. They invested their time into listening to this podcast, and they learned a little snippet of something they did not know that affects people and every living thing on Earth. It's not just something that happens in hognose things. It's something that happens in humans, in all of life, and that's valuable knowledge. They know a little bit more about how life works for having listened to that. Yeah, and so there's value in that.
There's this one thing with humans is like a gene duplication happened where it made people like they're more they were able to digest certain, I think, starches better because those genes that helped them digest starch were stacked up.
Were you talking about the paper on dogs? I missed the first part.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't remember.
There was a paper that just published
6 months ago or something.
I mean, there's a paper published this year that showed a ghost lineage of canids that hybridized with early after domestication of dogs. After domesticated dogs got domesticated from gray wolves. After that split between their wild gray wolf ancestors, early domesticated dogs hybridized with an unknown mystery canid that shows up as a ghost lineage, and we have no idea what species this was. But in that exchange of this hybridization with early domesticated dogs with an unknown canid, a gene jumped from that unknown canid into domesticated dogs that allows them to digest starch, which is why your dogs can digest table scraps that would make a wolf can't do that. Why,
I always kind of wonder, how can a fucking dog eat kibble that has all these fillers that are
it's because of it
and stuff corn
because
meal.
another unknown species of canid that wasn't a gray wolf and wasn't a domesticated dog hybridized with early in the domesticated dog lineage early on when they probably looked pretty much like a wolf still, hybridized with them a gene that allowed for better digestion of starches, jumped into the domesticated dog lineage, and then because of, you guessed it, gene duplication, that happened. And while that original wild canid that we don't know what it was, that its genes passed into domesticated dogs, so that hybridization event, that gene made it over, that wild canid wasn't digesting any starches. It just had a gene variant that was more amenable to that. But because we kept feeding human food to domestic dogs, that gene was preferentially passed on and got duplicated over and over and over again. And then now you have dogs that can eat grains and stuff that is wholly unnatural, but it came from a wild canid and a hybridization event. And so there you go. Adaptive introgression, hybridization, and gene duplication. All these things we're talking about in one paper in domesticated dogs that we all have anyway.
Can you send me that paper? I actually want to read on that one.
I don't even have the paper. I just read a synopsis. I just was made aware of it 3 days ago.
I'll look up wolf starch. That's what they should call the ghost dog. starch wolf.
I literally just heard about this and read a synopsis of this paper like a few days ago. I'm like, oh crap, like, yeah, but that just weirdly ties up everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
and now everybody knows something about their dogs they didn't know before. See, we're talking about science here.
Starch wolves.
It's not all lowbrow. Yeah, it's like, but it's gene duplication, it's hybridization, it's adaptive integration, it's domestication, it's all of that stuff. What?
Sometimes you gotta throw like an F word and bring up like a pastel ball python, so that the lowbrow people are like, okay, you said pastel ball python and the F word. I jive with that.
It's all the same thing. The things that have why our dogs are the way they are, why we're the way we are, because we basically domesticated ourselves. We bear all the hallmarks of domestication as humans. We inadvertently domesticated ourselves. All this stuff, all these things we're talking about, whether it's gene duplication, mutations, all this stuff, it's us, it's everything that's alive. It's the same, it's how life itself works at a fundamental level. So understand, we might look at this through the microcosm of these reptiles that we're all super into in one species or other, but that knowledge, when you understand that knowledge, it's applicable to everything. It's everything. It's why the beta I have in a fish tank up in my living room behind my couch is the color it is. It's the same thing, the same processes. It's all the same stuff. And so understanding how life itself works is pretty fascinating.
It is.
So people, see, you got to challenge the viewers and the listeners to learn a little something every time.
Well, I think people have the notion that genetics are complicated, but what we need to know is kind of like limited. But actually, the more you want to know about genetics, the more things work. There's actually a lot to learn. There's like an insane amount that actually applies to everything we're doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, the average reptile hobbyist has like this entry level baseline layer of knowledge. That's most of the stuff you need to know and stuff. Yeah. But even like just getting to like the next one or two rungs up the ladder of knowledge is a whole bunch more. There's a whole bunch more stuff that explains more and stuff. And it's easy for me to come on these podcasts and sort of wax poetic about genetics. I'm not a freaking geneticist. Like, I'm just like a couple rungs in the same ladder above everybody else. I'm just up here, just a couple levels up more of knowledge. It's just all this other stuff. But there's a lot more beyond that I'm, I have some understanding of, but I certainly wouldn't be conversational. I wouldn't want to get too conversational with some of these other processes because, but it's fascinating.
Somebody says, thanks for sharing your knowledge and time, Nick. Then Lisa says, you and I think Paul Harris would be like the two old dudes on the Muppets. Those are the guys like up in the...
Randolph and Mortimer, the two grumpy old dudes in the balcony.
Yeah, they're on the balcony, thank you.
That's totally it. I have those guys... You know Ryan Young.
I know of him. Dave knows him better.
I have known Ryan for fucking since he was like 17 or 18, since we were kids. And I was in my mid-20s. So I've known him for, almost 30 years. I talk to him almost every day. We are those two old guys. These two grumpy-ass old-timers. When did we get to be the two grumpy old guys on the Muppets?
Okay. You guys are looking good for old guys, for the record.
Right? Like,
how old are you, Nick?
I am 53. I'll be 54 in December.
Oh, really? Yeah, I would have thought you were younger than that. I would have guessed like 40 several.
40 several? Yeah. Right? I'll take what I can get. Like, yeah, I don't want to look my age. I might look a little younger than I am, but like other parts of my body, like my back and everything else reminds me, oh, nope, you're old. You're definitely old. You're definitely in your mid-50s now. But yeah, I've been doing this a long time. I think 1994.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been some time.
I think I got my first snake in 1992. I mean, I had snakes when I was a kid, but as a young adult.
But against their will.
I got my first snake I ever got was a Bali locality reticulated python.
That's your first snake? Damn.
It was a terrible, terrible first snake. Because it was one of those...
your first pet lizard, an iguana?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, as a child, I had as a younger child, I had the usual green and brown anoles. I had some Haitian curly tail lizards. I had some of that stuff, miscellaneous frogs and toads and newts and things. Then nothing, and then as a young adult, you get out on your own and you realize, I can have any crazy pet I want. And so I got the local pet shop, and they had like a green iguanas, there's $14.99 for baby green iguanas. So I got a green iguana, and then I got 5 green iguanas, and then I found a spiny-tailed iguana, and then I got, a club-tailed iguana, some rare types of iguanas, and then I got a Dumerals monitor, and got some monitors, and just like a lot of people, it's incrementally more and more lizards, and then I got my first snake, and it was that retic that it was about 7 feet when I moved it onto a new home. It was one of those, like, not very trustworthy, but not entirely a psychopath either. It was that lure you into a false sense of security and then bite you in the face. But like 95% of the time it was totally fine, but then would unpredictably lunge at your face every once in, but not very often, but once in a while. It was like, it would have been better if it was just always mean, because you just know it was going to bite at you, but it was rarely, but unpredictably so.
So Nick, I also got my first snake in '92. You want to see a picture?
I'm scared to ask, but yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What? Is that a Transbangos rat? It's a boa? Boy, it's hard to see.
Yeah, it was a red tail.
Yeah, sorry, it's the lighting.
Man, you are a lot you're a lot younger than me.
It's the phone. I thought it was the computer, but no, that's a boa.
I was 19 years old in 1992. I graduated high school in 91.
No, I was a youngin'. No, I saved all my birthday and Christmas money, and I think it cost $129.99. Same price it costs today.
Yeah, I remember having wild-caught boas and stuff back then, early on, and I kind of miss those days when everything was amazing and awesome, and you even go to your local pet store and they would just have whatever random thing, and it was just awesome, and you're just enamored with everything. Not old and bitter and jaded like I am now.
Yep.
Everything was new and exciting and super cool just to look at.
I think the internet, like, with everything being so accessible, like in new projects, and you're seeing it all the time online, it's easy to take for granted, like, the newness and the freshness of anything being produced. Is like, oh, I've seen it all the time. Yeah, versus like when there wasn't like the internet accessible. Like when I got into it, King Snake was like just starting, and even then, people didn't upload stuff that often, and you'd have to get on your computer to check stuff. But you go to reptile shows, or I go to Daytona when I was like in my mid-teens, and you'd see breeders there that never had an online presence. So you never seen them or heard of them, and they'd have cool stuff and locality stuff. It was definitely a different level of exciting back then.
Yeah, I find myself being drawn to like picking up species that I remember from way, way, way back and never kept, like giant legless lizards. I kind of like want those. I kind of want Calabar. They're not
burrowing pythons, those, yeah.
But they're not pythons. They're actually, they're an old world Erisine snake, so they're closely related to sand boas, and Mexican burrowing pythons, the Loxosemids. There's a guy that keeps breeding them. I'm like, I kind of want them.
Yeah,
they're not pythons, but phylogenetically, they're the closest living thing. They just barely missed being a python. They're the closest relative to the pythons that isn't a python. They just barely missed being a python.
That guy's cool. He's really nice. He's one of the albino Euromassic. I can't remember. Sometimes, dude, at one time
that seems like a terrible idea. It's like a completely sun-loving desert lizard that's an albino.
They do good. From what I see, he breeds them. And they say he has adults. They look good.
I don't know. Like, it just seems like counterintuitive, but I kind of want those Mexican burrowing pythons.
The Mexican burrowing pythons, dude, they do look good. They're so iridescent, and they're really nice, too. He had a clutch. And I even told you, I think you're the only person in the U.S. to even hatch them this year.
Yeah, I kind of want to get some of those. Good. I think that's kind of a neat thing that... I have a lot of snakes that are just for me. I think everybody that keeps reptiles at a higher level needs to have... If you're not doing this, you are doing yourself a disservice. You need to have a few projects that don't make any commercial sense at all. Like, that have no profit. Like, if it's all, these are going to sell, it's all that, it's exhausting. You need to have something that keeps you grounded in why you got in the hobby in the first place, which wasn't to get rich quick, I hope. Like, you need to have at least a few stupid things that don't make a damn bit of economic sense whatsoever, but you just have them because you like looking at them and you think it's neat, and it doesn't matter if they breed, and it doesn't matter what they're worth, that you just have for the enjoyment, the pure enjoyment of it. Me, it's rough-scaled sand boas. They make no sense for me to have rough-scaled sand boas. None at all. I have like 6 of them.
No,
like,
they
I just
are
think,
funny.
I always
Really
think they're
cute.
just. I just thought they were cool. I just always. I don't give a shit. I'll breed them, I suppose. Don't care. Don't need. They're not. I'm not gonna make my living breeding rough. It's not about that. It's like I just think those are neat. I'm just gonna have them. It's just for me.
Those are cool. When I go to reptile shows when I was a kid,
Yeah.
like the local Noah shows and at the Armory in Columbus, Ohio, you know, you see somebody like there's never a lot of them, but if somebody had a few babies that are like $80 each, and I was always drawn to them because of their really nice contrast of their gray background and that big gold.
When you guys first got into the hobby, when you got that boa constrictor, it wasn't like, oh man, I'm gonna breed these boas and then people are gonna really want these babies. It was like you just loved that snake because it was the neatest thing you'd ever seen. God damn it! It was just your fascination with it is just for you, and there was like a certain purity to the hobby at that early. Just have a couple of things, even if you breed on a large scale. Have a couple things that are just for you. I learned that lesson from Casey Lazick. I went over to Casey's house. Jesus. 1999, I bought my first Brettles pythons. This is 27 years ago. And at that time, he was like the biggest breeder of Australian pythons. Had all this high dollar stuff, just tons of awesome stuff. And in one room, there was a big ass, it was like a 100-gallon like fish tank, and it had a collared lizard in it, like his blue ass collared lizard. I'm thinking, why do you have a collared lizard with all this high dollar stuff? He's like, because it's cool. And it was basically because he just loved that lizard and thought those were neat. And it didn't matter that it had no commercial viability. It wasn't about that. It was just this awesome thing that he just genuinely thought was cool. Had all this other stuff, and that's how you make your living, and that's all cool. But this was just a thing you did for yourself, and I just thought that's the right attitude. Keep a few things like that. Just keep yourself grounded. Why you love reptiles. It does not all about making money and its viability. I have probably too many things that don't make any economic sense at all. But I just like some of this stuff. I think it's neat. And so I have a pair of OKT corn snakes I could have bred like 4 years ago. I've never even put them together. I just think they're cool. I don't need baby OKT corn. I mean, I should probably, I guess, put them together. Maybe. I got some Cal Kings that are probably big enough to breed like 3 or 4 years ago. I've just never put them together. I just think they're neat. They're cool. It's more just for me.
I like all the different garter snakes in the United States. Like there was about catching the garters. If there was anything I would just like collect someday just for fun, have little communal groups going on, it'd be garter snake related.
Some of the garter snakes are some of the most beautiful snakes in all of North America. There are some insanely beautiful garter snakes that I think we tend to take for granted because there are garter snakes all over the place. But if you really look at one with a lot of red, it's like they're red and blue. They were beautiful. Some beautiful garter snakes. Like, I don't keep them because I don't like high metabolic rate snakes that pee a lot. That's like, I'm not good about snakes that need to eat all the time. Like, I'm so used to basal macrostomatin snakes like pythons and boas that just have a low metabolic rate and don't eat that much or that often. I have a hard time with like snakes that are in higher gear. But you gotta
chop it up in little pieces for them.
They're beautiful though, and I love finding them in the wild. I think they're great. I hope I never lose that. I hope there's never a day I'm not stoked when I find a garter snake. That's what I'm saying. There's beautiful snakes.
Yeah, a lot of my trips in Missouri, like oddly enough, like I grew up seeing garters all the time in Wisconsin. I saw them in New York, but there's a lot of herping trips in Missouri. I don't even get to see a single garter snake, which kind of blows my mind with all the diversity here. I feel like there should be more of those. Yeah,
I got a couple species of them over here I can find.
You like the wanderer garters, don't you? The wandering garters?
We've got a lot of those, but we got like cool. Sertalis and stuff too. I mean, the wandering ones, you find them a lot further away from water. Sometimes you find them in the water though. Like there's a few places. Geez, I got a picture of my son on my phone. Like we were camping, and there was so many wandering garter snakes. Like he's just holding like multiple and each handfuls of garter snakes, while it's standing like in a foot deep in this little stream. And they're just everywhere, just grabbing them. But there's just so many of them. I love that picture. Yeah, it's like I hope they have some interest in nature.
Yeah, we ended up underneath a bridge in like southeast Missouri, and there was a bunch of plain belly water snakes that were like in this like 6 inches of water, kind of underneath this like break wall dam thing. There was like dead crayfish, dead like fish everywhere, and me and my buddy Matt are just like grabbing as many as we can. Like we're like splashing. It's disgusting. We must have come out of there with like almost 10 of these things in our hands. And highlight of the day. Loved everything about it.
Yeah, I love those memories. I've got a similar with garter snakes. There must have been like a den of them or something in these boulders by this golf course. I was floating on an inner tube down the river, and they're just like thousands of giant garter snakes. Like they're literally, the ground was just, there must have been thousands of them. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Like, what? It's crazy.
Awesome.
I mean, yeah, I love that. I love that stuff. Yeah. Gentlemen, I just realized we have been talking for 3 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Woo. You guys.
Thanks for being here, Nick.
3 hours and 40 minutes for the record. But,
as always,
yeah,
we always. Yeah,
it's
I never at any point got anywhere close to being on the topic. Like,
this is why I don't do topics. This was
it's so difficult, right? I know, and it was a good topic too. It was a legit good topic to talk about.
Next time,
there are not that many people that breed reptiles that turn their passion for keeping reptiles into a viable business and it becomes their livelihood. There's not that many people that do it like that, and all three of us do, and we all arrived at the same point in totally different ways. And I think that's a really interesting conversation to have because it's different. All of our experiences are very different, probably, but we never even got there.
Yeah, you're right. Because originally we had the Axanthic topic, but then I was like, oh yeah, because I heard you say that earlier. Like, well, we were on topic. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. We were supposed to discuss.
It's just like, oh man,
that was the other topic. We really, and it is a good.
The gloves come out and it's on again.
I think we had we probably have a decent amount of common though. Why we started getting into reptiles. You know, of course, you had that initial into species, and then it kind of grows from there.
Yeah, it does, and it's like, and.
We appreciate you sticking it out, man. I love these.
We'll do that next time.
Like
next time,
3 hours, we do something wrong. In all honesty,
right? I can talk for a long time, if nothing else.
Yeah, no.
If nothing else.
Well, I appreciate your time as always, Jeff. I appreciate your time. This is my first official start and finish on a podcast. I've never recorded one, never did it. This is me, all me. I feel pretty good. Why don't we go ahead and finish up with another shout out to
Southeast Reptile Expo. Yeah, this is North Atlanta. Dave and I will be there. Nick's going to be there in spirit.
Right.
You can talk to me and Dave, who just talked to Nick. And if you're missing Nick, you can just listen to this on a repeat or other podcasts he's done. This is run by Bob Vu. Snake Discovery is going to be there. Ed and Emily. Bob Vu, he runs the show. He's going to be there. And then you're going to have, I think, Quebec, a bunch of other big breeders. You got Josh Adler. He's got a bunch of interesting variety of species. And you got one of the coolest breeders going to be there. He's going to bring in a huge selection of Western hognose snakes. It's me. And then you got Dave.
Right. Well, hell yeah, buddy. Great episode. Had a blast with you guys. Talk to you later.
All right. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.